The cosmos is hitting the reset button on all of humanity with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in February 2026. Because this is a rare celestial configuration, Saturn and Neptune getting together. It happens every 36 years. But what we are experiencing this month that we have already been in the story for is a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-an-era, once-in-a-millennium event. Because the location that Saturn and Neptune are getting together, their meeting place, is a very important location. The degree that they are lighting at, the cosmic coordinates, you can think of it, is the degree of all degrees. It is the degree that every degree to come builds upon. Saturn and Neptune are getting together at 0 degrees Aries. This is truly where it all begins. This is the first degree of the first sign. And with that, there is an energy of initiation, a brand new chapter, a fresh new cycle that is opening up, ready or not. But beginnings are messy. And when we think about Saturn, the planet of order, structure, tradition, getting together with Neptune, the planet of dissolution and deception, this particular alignment is messy. You know, anytime anything is created, there are growing pains. There is mess. When we were created, when we bless this planet with our own presence via childbirth, that's a very messy, sometimes very painful process. But that is what gave way to you being here right now under this Saturn-Neptune conjunction, listening to this very video, is that messy beginning. And all of us, all of humanity are at that messy beginning. It is really a reset button with 0 degrees Aries and these two planets getting together. And it's going to be really important how it is that we show up for this new beginning, knowing that this is a beginning that is messy. This is a beginning that is human, because humans are messy. Aries is a very raw sign. It could be a very primal sign. It could be a very instinctive sign. And so absolutely are we as humanity stumbling through life at times and falling and getting up, absolutely. But Saturn and Neptune aligning with 0 degrees Aries, it's being bold enough and brave enough to envision a new way of doing things. And yes, potentially delusional enough to envision a new way of doing things. Neptune is the planet of higher realms, higher imagination, higher muse. And with Neptune aligning with Saturn, there can be an opportunity and a potential to bring dreams into reality, to birth things into reality, to take things from the ethers and make them happen within reality. See, Neptune and Saturn are finishing out their journeys in Pisces, which is very much in the spiritual realm. Aries is very much within the physical realm, this raw, instinctive, primal experience of being human. And so there are opportunities with this particular alignment and the years surrounding it, honestly, to take things that have been in the ethers, to pluck them and bring them down into planet Earth, knowing that the journey will be raw, it'll be messy, it'll need to be perfected. You know, with the energy of Aries, imperfect action is better than perfect planning. Like when it's time to go into labor and birth something into existence, ready or not, it's time. And this alignment in Aries asks you to access those courage codes that are within you. And I know that they're within you because you would not be here during this incredibly rare alignment at 0 degrees Aries if you were not. And with Saturn, Neptune, it's remembering why you came here. And with the energy of Saturn, showing up for that in order to initiate a new way of being for yourself and for, honestly, all of humanity. With this happening within a couple of days of the opening Aquarius Solar Eclipse. So my loves, we have so much to discuss here. Within the course of this video, we will explore Saturn conjunct Neptune in the past. We will look to past times that Saturn and Neptune got together and what we witnessed as a collective, and where that may be showing up in what we're navigating currently, which is where we will go next. We'll talk about the ways in which Saturn Neptune has already been showing up within our experiences. And then we'll take it into Saturn Neptune within the future, essentially the new cycle that we are stepping into, the new beginning that we are stepping into, and how it is that this story is likely to continue to take form and shape, knowing that this particular alignment at 0 degrees Aries, this is before it's fully formed. Like this is like newborn energy cosmically. So we will tune into essentially the human that are creations to take form, as well as the new era that we are being swept into, because it all begins with 0 degrees Aries. And this shows up collectively, but it also shows up individually. So then we'll take it into which signs will feel this particular alignment the most, whose charts are being stirred up with this particular alignment. I will guide you in how you can find where 0 degrees Aries is within your chart, because that's where you are hitting the reset button, or at least you have this fertile, potent opportunity to birth something new, to merge compassion, selfless dedication to something higher than yourself with something material, something substantive, something tangible. That's the energy of Saturn. So I'll take you into a house by house exploration of where these two planets are aligning within your chart and what it is that you're stepping into. But before we do, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Haley Comet. This is my cosmic corner of the internet. I'm here every single week guiding you through the astrology in my podcast called Magic Monday. And it's true to my style, which I will always be straight up with you about the astrology that we are stepping into. I mean, we've got this alignment in Aries. Being honest and authentic is truly the only way. It's important to know that you are a participant within your fate, that you are a co-creator with the cosmos. And that's what I dedicate my podcast to, as well as any other video that you'll find on my channel too, is how it is that you can work with these themes, how it is that you can experience more alignment and flow with your life by co-creating with these themes. So if that feels like something you'd be into, I would so deeply appreciate your subscription, as well as if you gain any value from this video, any bit of engagement that you can give from a like, a comment, a subscription would be appreciated. I have all signs yearly horoscopes also on my channel in my series called 12 Days of Cosmos. And I also have all signs videos around the major events like this one that we are experiencing. Aquarius Solar Eclipse, all signs is already live on my channel, and that will help you tune into the big stories that are playing out within your chart, because we have quite a bit happening in February 2026, and I am so honored to be your cosmic guide in it. So without further ado, let's take it into Saturn conjunct Neptune, a fated frontier. So as we stated, we are stepping into something that nobody living amongst us has ever seen before. And that is the significance that Saturn and Neptune are getting together at 0 degrees Aries. These two planets do get together every so often. And by every so often, I mean 36 years. But the reason this particular alignment that we are experiencing in February 2026 is so pivotal, so potent, is because it is at that 0 degrees Aries point, which is a very significant point within astrology. We'll get more into it. But before we get into where we have not gone as humanity, let's talk about where we've been. Because when we look to astrology, we track patterns, we track cycles. It's a bit like weather forecasts, where if the atmosphere is doing this and this is doing this, this sort of weather is likely to occur. We do the same thing with astrology forecasts as well. And we look back to what transpired the last time that Saturn and Neptune got together, knowing that this particular alignment has its own nuance, has its own energy, because it is flavored by the 0 degrees Aries of it all. But let's talk about what we are likely to experience, particularly bolstered by what we've experienced the last times that these planets got together. So let's contemplate the various ways that this energy showed up. Firstly, what you need to know is that Neptune is around dissolving and Saturn is around structure. And something that we commonly see when we look at Saturn and Neptune getting together in the cycles of them is dissolution of structures that may have been very solid, that may have been time honored, and Neptune energy can make them poof, vanish, gone. And that can happen in an instant, especially with this alignment in Aries. It's a very quick, fiery energy. For example, a very obvious manifestation of this was when Saturn and Neptune got together around 1989 is when the Berlin Wall fell. Like a literal manifestation of a structure, a barrier, a border that was dissolved with the energy of Neptune. If we think back to 1848, which interestingly is the year that Neptune was discovered, fascinating. But if we think back to that time, Saturn and Neptune aligned in Aquarius, and that was timed with the US-Mexican War, which led to a reallocation of boundaries and barriers around California, Utah, Nevada, Texas, Arizona. We also see revolutions and uprisings with these two getting together. In 1917 was around World War I, and particularly that year was the year that the US got involved. Also, it was the year of the Russian Revolution. And so sometimes the boundaries and the barriers that Neptune dissolves are very literal. In these examples, like land and walls, it literally dissolves, it literally breaks through. And sometimes that shows up more so in the structures, the norms, the rules that are set up by those in power or society at large, and dissolving those boundaries, dissolving those barriers altogether. For example, there are significant points in time that signal where it is that women were able to go into spaces where they were not able to before. The Seneca Falls Convention landed within the time of Saturn and Neptune's alignment, as well as in 1917, New York State approved women's suffrage, which was huge and foundational as it relates to the 19th Amendment and being able to encourage all individuals to vote. What's interesting is that Abraham Lincoln was born during a Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the sign Sagittarius, and throughout his presidency, he established the Emancipation Proclamation, which again dissolved barriers or rules that existed prior. Also, speaking of dissolving structures and rules, particularly rules that don't make sense, in 1989, a later pass of Saturn on Neptune, Denmark became the first country to legally recognize same-sex unions. Also in 1989 was when New York State recognized surviving partners in same-sex unions and granted legal rights. And prohibition began in the 1920s, which was when essentially drinking was outlawed altogether. And it's such a literal definition of these two, because outside of Neptune's effect on Saturn, which, like I said, is like dissolving structures and rules and barriers where there were before, we also have to think of Saturn's influence on Neptune, right? And so Saturn is around restriction, and Neptune does govern essentially anything that bends and distorts reality as we know it. And so Saturn and Neptune, as they got closer and closer, essentially led or gave way to essentially prohibiting drinking. And fascinatingly, in 1989, we see that tendril come back around in 1989 with a major push essentially around anti-drug, DARE program. DARE was technically established earlier in the 80s, but late 80s is when it really got pushed out to more and more people. And there was a huge movement around the just say no of it all. And it's also interesting when we look at that particular part of Neptune. As I said, Neptune is anything that bends and distorts reality. And of course, psychedelics is part of that. In 1953, there were reports of certain government bodies and institutions leveraging psychedelics, specifically LSD, for psychological warfare, essentially testing this on individuals who did not consent to be tested on, which is another facet of Saturn on Neptune, which leads me to the next point, which is the degradation and the disillusionment with government, with institutions, with structured hierarchies and rules altogether. We see with these particular passes, just like a lack of public trust within these institutions, within these governing bodies. In that particular case, it's like this really shady occurrence happening in secrecy. Like Neptune energy can be smokescreen energy, so things happening in secret that are revealed, like Saturn energy can be consequences for this sort of thing, as well as just feeling very gaslit and fundamentally not being able to trust those in power or those who have climbed the Saturnian structures within our life. A random example of this was in the late 80s, George Bush, when running for office, said, "Read my lips, no more taxes." And then just 2 years later, had to walk back that particular decorative statement as new taxes were enacted at that particular time. And so as a collective, like with Saturn and Neptune, it can mark a time of mistrust in the government, in those in power, and just instances like this, where it's like, this was so clearly said, and then as time walks forward, that clearly was not the case. You clearly did not mean what you say, which sometimes can impact our faith, and not just our leaders, but these bodies that govern us all together around Will they live up to what they say? Are things as they seem? Neptune energy is that smokescreen energy. So it makes it very challenging at times to see clearly. And what we see a lot of times with Neptune and Saturn getting together is an overall culture or feeling pervading in the air of paranoia. For example, in the 1989 past, this is linked to the Satanic Panic. There was an overall panic around essentially satanic cults at this particular time and ritualistic abuse. We're going to put a pin in that because I think that's relevant for what we're experiencing within 2026. But it was this panic, and Neptune energy makes it hard to discern what is real and what is not. Neptune energy can be nightmare energy. And a lot of times during the conversation between Saturn and Neptune all together, we see certain witch hunts all together and making people the enemy, just this overall energy of paranoia. Like the Salem witch trials did occur during a Neptune-Saturn square. Different than the conjunction, but anytime we have Neptune and Saturn get together, like Neptune is nightmare and fear energy, and with Saturn energy looking for someone, or in some instances, groups of bodies, in some instances, groups of people to blame around they're the problem, they're it. And this fear and paranoia, like directing it towards particular groups of people, many of which are innocent. And so a lot of times with Saturn, Neptune, we have this energy of paranoia around they're the problem, because Neptune energy is very widespread energy, which is why I was saying it's kind of a messy influence because it's not so neat. Neptune, is connected to the ocean, like it's very watery of an influence, and water spreads, water leaks. It does not stay where it is. And so there is an energy with Saturn and Neptune getting together where we see the widespread energy of something. And a lot of times it can be fear, paranoia. Another way we see this visible is the rise of McCarthyism in the early 50s and just this overall energy of paranoia and mistrust that, again, spreads like wildfire. When we think about Neptune energy, just the fear, the anxiety, the paranoia, and looking for someone to blame or something to point it at. Like Saturn wants things to be contained and wants things to be linear. And so Neptune, just this overall fear and paranoia lingering in the air and looking for, you're the problem, they're doing it, they're doing it. And Saturn energy, a lot of times consequences around a witch hunt or looking for who did it or who's at fault here. And sometimes arriving to conclusions that are not necessarily accurate. Another way that we see the Neptune kind of widespread energy show up spreading like wildfire is that this is timed with a lot of plagues and flus. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case within this past, but Neptune energy can be essentially the widespread nature of it. And again, the overall paranoia, even in the case of the bubonic plague in 1345, right around a Saturn-Neptune transit. And that particular plague, I think, is interesting because it brings up this energy of Saturn, Neptune, which again is like this fear and anxiety around, sickness and illness is in the air. And at that particular time, there was like misinformation around what was really causing this plague to spread. It was considered at this time that the dirtier that you were, the harder it would be for the virus, the illness to enter your body. So people were living in essentially filth, thinking that they were protecting themselves, when in all actuality, like filthy conditions and poor sanitation led to the transmission of the plague. Like it was spread by rats and fleas, or even lice, I believe, is what essentially caused the transmission to soar. And I'm not saying that from a fear-based perspective. It's just overall this energy of Neptune. It can bring about a lot of fear and sometimes pinning down answers that are not entirely the full story. But while we see, influenza outbreaks, bubonic plague outbreaks with this, there's also a conversation around vaccines or developments medically, like when we think about polio in 1953, right around the time of Saturn on Neptune. So again, something pervading and all around, and the energy of Saturn is structure. And when we think of the different illnesses and outbreaks aligned with Saturn Neptune, they're typically aligned with like an overall sense of paranoia, obviously, when people are getting sick, and sometimes people are looking for people to blame. And sometimes there's even an energy of outcasting certain individuals or ostracizing them, judging them, which we see with 1989 when Saturn and Neptune got together. And of course, this is timed with the HIV/AIDS outbreak. And there was so much misinformation. There was so much paranoia around that particular time. Children who had contracted AIDS were being barred from going to school. Individuals who are gay or HIV positive were discriminated against. And with this energy of Saturn, Neptune, there was this overall sensation in the air, just paranoia in the air around feeling like it could be transmitted through close personal contacts, which led to this energy around don't come near me, don't be near me, which of course, in regards to the individuals living with this disease, just the level of feeling ostracized, feeling judged, feeling othered, we also see with Saturn, Neptune. Because with Saturn, Neptune, there's this overall feeling of fear and paranoia, whether it's McCarthyism, whether it's outbreaks, whatever it is, and everybody looking for someone to essentially blame or someone to judge or someone to say this is the particular problem. And what we know now walking through time and space is that there was a lot of misinformation at this particular time and people judging and condemning individuals who were innocent or just around things that were not understood at that particular time. I will say, when we think of this kind of widespread catching like wildfire sort of energy, we do see that in reference to television, in reference to media. Like in 1953, it's interesting, around that time was the first election that was ever televised, as well as the coronation was televised around this time in Great Britain. And essentially, that was a time that drove a lot of people out to get television sets. Like it was a time that went from not many people having television to all of a sudden a television being in like 95% of homes around that time, which Neptune governs cameras, it governs media, and again, a changing landscape with the energy of Saturn and oftentimes consequences around that. And I want to be so clear with my intentions for this segment, because this is not me saying that we are going to live through another plague. This is not me saying that we're going to experience another pandemic in February 2026. It's just helpful to look back to the past to understand the dominant energies that we see reflected here on planet Earth and to observe where that's coming up now, but furthermore, where it is that we can grow, where it is that we can evolve, where it is that we cannot repeat some of the really nasty shadow sides of what we're witnessing now, as well as what we've witnessed throughout these years. Discrimination and othering and looking for people to blame and fear and paranoia, creating widespread panic altogether. It's important to observe where that's coming up now, but to know that all of us are here to grow, to evolve. So observe what these cycles foretell, but also know that the future is ours to create. And if you are someone where history lights you up and you're really fascinated on diving deeper into Saturn on Neptune, this was just a brief flourish into some of the patterns that I found particularly interesting. But I do want to recommend the Astrology podcast Saturn conjunct Neptune episode. It's such a deep dive. It is so well researched. So I would deeply recommend to all my history buffs, if you're wanting to take a deeper dive into it, make sure to check this out. But let's understand what all of these historical events, what all of these past alignments between Saturn and Neptune, where they have led us to this particular moment in time, February 2026. Saturn will conjoin Neptune in Aries on February 20th, 2026. The alignment exacts at 8:53 a.m. PST, and it lands at 0 degrees Aries. So where it sits in present time, the pressure is building. The heat is being turned up. The pot is boiling over, so to speak. But we have been raising the temperature bit by bit. That's why in our walk down memory lane portion, not all of those events happened on the literal day that Saturn aligned with Neptune. We operate in a window, especially with a planet as slippery and evasive as Neptune. We operate with a bit of a wiggle room because these are two very slow moving planets. So even when they're not at the same portion of the sky, they're operating relatively close. So their story is already being written. And so Saturn and Neptune both have been transiting Pisces since 2023. They both stepped into Aries last year. And when I would say the rising temperature got the closest where it is now in February 2026 was midway through last year. Saturn Neptune got real close to aligning. They did not officially conjoin, but a lot of the themes were already present and already woven in what it is that we've already walked through. Again, individually as well as collectively. But now the two are getting together. And there is a new cycle that is initiating, because it's important to know that every time Saturn and Neptune get together, they're starting a new cycle for the next 36 years. And it is a cycle that is very much around a beginning, with it at 0 degrees Aries, which is a very significant degree. And it also looks like an egg, with new beginnings for ourselves as well as the world at large. This is the Aries point on the world axis. So there is a bigger than us sort of new cycle that we are stepping into. And it's important to know that this alignment happens in Aries, which yes, is around beginnings, but it's also around honesty. It's also around, advocacy. It's around authenticity. And there does feel to be a degradation, a disillusionment of certain structures or elite or faith in the government, like these Saturnian structures. It's important to know that in February 2026, Neptune is peregrine, which means it's like neutral in Aries. It doesn't really have a strong relationship with Aries, versus Saturn is in its fall in Aries. It is profoundly uncomfortable. So when these two get together, Neptune's actually operating stronger than Saturn. This energy of structures around tradition and structure with the energy of Neptune, it's dissolving a lot of that and even like revealing a lot of that when we think of the files that have been released around this particular time and sort of coming out of this collective idolizing of celebrity, like seeing the degradation, the cruel misuse of power that's underlying it. Saturn on Neptune in Aries feels like coming out of a dream or being very disenchanted. Because Neptune in and of itself is a very kind of dreamy planet. It can govern things that feel glamorous. It can govern celebrity. But the energy of Saturn, especially in a very raw, honest sign of Aries, is sort of like revealing the truth behind the sheen, behind the glamour, and a fall from us really like idolizing or pedestalizing celebrities altogether, as well as just elite structures altogether, like kind of seeing the truth, seeing the reality of it. It's important to know that Saturn and Neptune were in Pisces before. So as they were building their conversation in Pisces largely. And Neptune is very comfortable in Pisces. So that energy of the fogginess between what's real and what's not was particularly potent, and energy around smoke screens and secrecy. And now with Neptune and Saturn, both in very raw Aries, there is a reveal of these sort of institutions, of these sort of structures that have allowed really depraved things to happen in secret while having this outer veneer of glamour and fame and fortune and all of these things, seeing how depraved it is beneath the surface. Another theme we see currently alive of what we've witnessed as we walk through time is this othering, this energy of discrimination, of ostracizing, of making people or groups of people the problem, the issue. And we see that currently just with what's transpiring here in the US around current administration seeking to other immigrants around they're the problem. And again, the fear and paranoia that runs rampant within that. And again, the lack of real discernment, the lack of real clarity. We also see it with Aries is a sign that is associated with force, and Saturn Neptune can fog boundaries and barriers around what is appropriate. And my encouragement for all of us at this time would be to be very aware of where things and boundaries and barriers around autonomy and agency are being degraded, are being dissolved around pushing and making it the new normal, and making even personal bounds or personal rights foggier and foggier. And sometimes even the overflow around utilizing force in order to enact one's will. That's a shadow side of Neptune Saturn. This alignment also has its roots in gaslighting, whether it's from governmental figures around this is not what happened, this is not what happened, even if you have evidence within your own being that contradicts what is being told. Like Neptune energy is smokescreen around, no, you're misunderstanding. But it's important to know that Aries governs the head, it governs the eyes. So even having certain things that are communicated that go against what you saw with your own eyes and from your own experience, like with the energy of Aries. And with Saturn, Neptune, of course, this can show up around the fogginess that we are experiencing currently as it relates to artificially generated videos and media. Again, Neptune energy is smokescreen energy around, are these bunnies jumping on a trampoline? Are they not? Again, artificial intelligence in and of itself is much more of a Pluto in Aquarius conversation, but there is an energy around overall sensation around what is real, as well as a real disillusion around the institutions, the governing bodies, and not necessarily having an element of trust there, especially when things are being contradicted against your own personal experience or what it is that you're personally walking with or walking through. Like Aries is a sign of the individual. And so my encouragement would be to know your rights, would be to fight for what it is that you find is right. I have to be forthright and say Aries is around conflict. It's important for you to stand up for what is right, as well as what you believe in. Like with Neptune and Aries, there is a nature of the spiritual warrior, in a sense, around standing up for your visions, for your dreams, even if they feel not realistic at this point in time. You know, like we talked about, Lincoln has Saturn Neptune within his birth chart, and throughout his presidency, throughout his power, he was able to make something that might have seemed at other points in time impossible a reality. And so we can do the same, whether this is to an individual level or to a collective level. Like with Neptune, Saturn, this can be an energy around taking visions of utopia or living with deep compassion and awareness and rights for all humans and making it manifest within our physical existence down here on planet Earth. Just important to hold that vision as we step into what comes next. So the future is yet to be fully written, but I do want to share some ways to really step into the higher octave of this, because as we talked about, this is a conjunction that is rife with mistrust and paranoia and sometimes disillusionment around the linear path with the energy of Saturn, or the people in power or authority altogether. Like with Neptune, there could just be an energy around, this is not what it was sold to me as. I thought celebrity was like this, and it's actually like this. It could leave a lot of us feeling very jaded and disillusioned. But what's important is to really grab hold of this reset button, so to speak, to birth new visions out into the world, to birth new creations, new ideas. The purpose of us all in being here is to grow and is to evolve and to be creators. Like Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It really is around creating and initiating. And so contemplating what bold, brave new visions you have within your noggin, within your dreams, because it's not to say that it'll be easy. Like Saturn energy actually ensures it'll be anything but bringing those dreams, those visions to reality. But it's important to fight for what it is that you believe in, what it is that you dream of, and the visions that are within your world. Because this could be a time of creating things that change the world, that move people, creating humans. You know, any baby that's born this particular year has Saturn, Neptune within their chart, which can be bringing dreams to reality, dissolving boundaries and barriers that lead to individuals on this planet having less rights from other people. And there is an element of delusion alive here. You know, you have to be delusional to try. You have to be delusional to create. You have to be delusional to fight and fall in love with the process of challenging yourself by putting new things out there, for fighting for what it is that you believe in, for even knowing that you have a life worth fighting for. You have dreams worth fighting for. You have a gift worth fighting for. And it takes chiseling. It takes showing up for it with the energy of Saturn. But the creations that are created are a blend this year of idealism with realism. It's a blend of spirit and substance. It's a blend of feeling connected to the universe while being rooted within your physical plane down here on planet Earth. There's a huge story with this alignment around identity and around naming things. You know, Aries is a sign that is associated with identity. And so if there have been certain bounds that you have locked yourself within around, I couldn't possibly do that, I'm so this, or I'm known as this, the energy of Neptune can soften those barriers around who's to say that you cannot. You know, they say it's impossible until it's done. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It goes where no other sign has gone before. It all begins with Aries, and it takes people who are delusional enough to try, to dream, to create. Any sort of inventor is told that they're crazy. Any sort of artist is told that they're crazy. And so really visiting where it is that you tell yourself no before the world even has the opportunity to do so. You know, where it is that you lock yourself within a cage around, I couldn't possibly, I'm so this, I'm so that. And with Neptune energy dissolving that cage, dissolving those barriers around, what if I could be? And again, with Saturn operating within your life, within that particular perception of yourself, within that particular self-concept can be really powerful this year. And with Aries energy, it's really wanting things that are real, and to own who it is that you really are in your real life. I think this is going to be a mark around people really wanting things that are true to themselves, really authentic. I think this energy is going to make it so we can all tell who is not living within their truth or living within their authenticity. You know, this is a year of the visionary, and you have to see yourself as a visionary in order to envision the visions that change the world. Like, you have to see yourself in that way, and not from this element of hubris or delusions of grandeur, but more so of this energy around recognizing how exquisitely designed you were made and how authentically you were made. Because Aries energy is going to have us all collectively crave things that are real, that are raw. You know, with Saturn Neptune, it can really expose smoke screens or things that have been told to us and sold to us to be A, B, and C. And also trusting within your own instincts is important with Saturn and Neptune and Aries, because again, people can strive to manipulate, saying it's this and it's that, but not letting that override the wisdom of your own instincts within your own experience, as well as being very cautious where it is that you yourself find yourself blaming others or pointing the finger at others. Again, we saw within our walk down memory lane just how many witch hunts were alive with Saturn, Neptune, or these are the enemy, this is the issue, like ultimately creating division or creating more fighting. Like shadow side of Saturn and Neptune, Aries is kind of fighting energy, but it's coming back to the visions that are worth fighting for, as well as your life, which is absolutely worth fighting for. Each and every one of us have a Saturn conjunct Neptune story. Some of us, it's more so subtext or nuance, and for others of us, it's the main driving plot point within our world. And so to transition our video, let's talk about the individual implications of this particular alignment. So if you have cardinal planets or angles between 0 to 4 degrees, this alignment will be more influential. So that's if you have Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or Ascendant, IC, Descendant, Midheaven, located between 0 to 4 degrees. This particular Saturn Neptune alignment will make a harsh aspect to a more personal point of your chart, signaling that it is a more personal initiation that is transpiring currently. Mutables, you are not off the hook. As we discussed, a lot of the lead up of this influence of this energy transpired with Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. And so if you have later mutable placements or angles, so we'll say 25 to 29 degrees, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Ascendant, IC, Descendant, or Midheaven between 25 to 29, you also will have this particular alignment harshly aspect to your chart, bringing more of a focus for you. But each and every one of us have a certain activation point alive within their charts. So as we transition into individual readings, I want to let you know how you can find which is alive for you. So the first option is if you are newer to astrology or you use whole sign house system. If you fall in either of those two categories, what you will do is you will go to timestamps and you will advance to the timestamp that corresponds to your rising sign, also known as your ascendant sign. That is your reading. That is your new beginning with Saturn, Neptune. If you use Placidus house system, I will guide you in a tutorial around how you can find the house that it lands in for you. This may be listed with your rising sign. It may not be listed with your rising sign, but here's how you can find it for you. So what you'll do is you go to astro.com, as I am on screen. After inputting your unique birth information, you do need exact time of birth in order to really figure out where exactly this lands for you. You will get a circle chart that looks like this. Find the Aries glyph. I'm circling it here. The line that is in between Pisces and Aries, this line, this indicates 0 degrees Aries. So you'll follow within that piece of pizza the number towards the inner circle. So within Inner Planet Janet here, we see this lands in the first house. So Inner Planet Janet would advance to the first house reading. Even though we see within this example, she's a Pisces rising, she would still go to the first house reading, which is associated with Aries ascendant in whole sign house system. If you are not sure, it's cutting it close, you're not totally sure, you can always click on the PDF additional tables button right here, and to the right hand side, it lets you know where every house begins. And that could be a way to figure out where exactly 0 degrees Aries lands in for you. So let's go ahead and take it into our house by house, rising sign by rising sign analysis. If the Saturn Neptune alignment lands in your first house, if you're an Aries rising, this message is for you. And you are stepping into a very significant story. I will start there. This is an angular house, so it's a bit of an exclamation point. And for you, the new beginning, the brave and bold new beginning that you are stepping into is really around yourself, your overall identity. You are breaking barriers around self. You could be renaming yourself. That might show up like literally for some of you around, this is a name I used to align with, I'm dissolving it and stepping into a name that feels more aligned. Or that could just show up in more so metaphysical ways or spiritual ways or just self-concept ways, around ways that you've always named and identified yourself, no longer aligning, no longer fitting, wanting to break down barriers of how you've seen yourself and furthermore how you've displayed yourself to the world. If you have hid behind certain veneers, Neptune energy could be dissolving it, and you could really desire to step into the fullness and the trueness of all that you are. Aries energy is a very brave, bold, authentic sign, and it takes a lot of boldness and bravery really to live in full authenticity with who it is that you are. And so you could be really dissolving who society has told you to be, who your family has told you to be, who your friends have told you to be, in order to step into who it is that you are. And sometimes Neptune energy is marked with an energy of confusion. You might be like, Haley Comet, I'm not quite sure. You know, I think it's not always necessarily around finding ourselves, but creating ourselves. And with the energy of Neptune, maybe it's like experimenting with certain elements of your style, your aesthetic, your identity, until you find instinctively what feels like you. Like ultimately, yes, this can bring up aesthetic shifts and things like that. But I think the best way to find our aesthetic, it's not what's trending. It's not what people have told us will look good on us. It's when you can look in the mirror and look at how you're dressed and how you do your makeup and you feel right in it. It feels like you. Like ultimately that is the highest octave of fashion and style and beauty altogether, is when the way that you adorn and decorate your outer being aligns with the beauty of your inner soul. And so there can be an element around that. You know, some of you could be struggling with not knowing who you are, or even feeling disjointed around your own physical body, or even feeling quite dysmorphic around what you really look like and having an element of confusion around that. If you've been on a journey around chasing and seeking an ideal, because Neptune energy is lights, camera, action energy, it's Photoshop energy, it's Facetune energy. And especially with Neptune and Pisces, the transit that we're finishing up, you know, there was so much that was told to us around the ideal and chasing this ideal. And with Neptune Saturn, some of you could recognize, you know, the consequences of chasing that ideal. Just the pervading sense of hatred around your own relationship with self, relationship with body, for some like literal consequences of how you've treated yourself in this search for perfection, with Aries energy allowing authenticity. Some of you could be really striving to feel stronger, like you might really want to feel strong and empowered and present within your own body. Like Aries energy is very present. It's here, it's raw, it's immediate of an energy. So if you felt disjointed, if you felt not fully here, like with Saturn Neptune, it could be a new start where you're stepping into it fully. Because it's hard to distill this to a particular arena of life. Like this is the house of self. So you're stepping into a new chapter and you're doing so with all of you. You're doing so boldly and bravely. For some of you, that's around family or career or friendship, what have you, but you're doing it with your whole self. And some of you may notice where you gave an inch and people took a mile. You know, Saturn energy is around boundaries. Neptune is around dissolving said boundaries. So you may be at the end of your rope in some sort of way, stepping into this particular alignment around, I've tried to be what you wanted me to be. I tried to be the ideal. I tried to always be nice. And with the energy of Saturn, you may need to stand on business or be a little firm around who you are. You know, I just keep hearing like, that's not me. That's not me. It's so powerful to say, not me. You know, sometimes people will come to you and they will see you as a respite for all of their problems. They will project things onto you that are not personal. And you may be doing the job around popping the bubble around, that's not me. You've got the wrong idea of who I am. And I even see just with Aries energy, it brings this feisty energy. People could be having a problem with you at this time. Like, be mad at you, be assuming things about you, projecting things onto you around you're so this and you're so that. And it's important to be solid in who it is that you know to be true. Because at this time, you could feel like people have you effed up. People think that you're this, people think that you're that, and you're going to waste your time and energy trying to prove the narrative. You could be fighting with all sorts of people. You could feel like you have to defend yourself or fight for who it is that you are. And it's just really recognizing if that's a battle worth waging or something worth fighting for. Because people who want to misunderstand you will always find a way to do so. They're committed to misunderstanding you. And people who want to make you the enemy, make you the problem, will always find a way to. Like, I just feel like some of you, especially if you're visible at this time, you could feel like no matter what I do, people have a problem with it. I do this and people are mad. I do this and people are mad. Let them be mad. It's an energy, but your job is to be very solid in who you are, to do what you know is right, because people are always going to talk. They're always going to assume this or that. You have to be solid in who it is that you are, as well as solid your own integrity. Again, if you feel like you've given an inch, people took a mile, the boundaries that you have enacted have just gotten foggier and foggier, this could be a time that you're really recognizing that the new chapter you're stepping into requires, yes, compassion and selflessness. That's the energy of Neptune, but also discernment and boundaries. Not everybody gets access to your energy just because they request it. And so you may have to be firm with that. As well as if some of you are not necessarily out there as it relates to your spiritual practices, like the energy of Saturn, some of you could be stepping up as some sort of spiritual leader, or even if you're not literally in the field of spirituality, you could be really wanting to enact your visions as it relates to how it is that you lead, as it relates to how it is that you show up. Like, you could really feel a lot of pressure around being the example. And being the example within your physical life, but also ensuring that your soul is in alignment with how you are leading your life. Because sometimes astrology like this, it just makes it very clear where we're living a life that is not our own. And those whisperers turn to screams. And like, ultimately, if you are following the path of your soul and of your highest alignment, people will say whatever they want to, but you'll be able to sleep at night because you know who you are. You know what you believe. You know that you're making the decisions in the ways that feel right to you. It's when you are looking for validation, adoration outside of yourself around maybe I'll like this, maybe like this, that you just feel these warning signals around, I don't want to do this. You know, I definitely would say really acknowledge where you're feeling that within your world, because it's natural. Some of us have certain responsibilities where it's like, we're not necessarily jazzed to do it every single day, but there's a difference between experiencing like, gotta go to work, gotta go do this, versus like ultimately feeling like this clawing sensation around, don't make me go there. You know, I'm just seeing with my mind's eye the final essentially year that I had at a particular job of mine. And when I say my entire system resisted that, it literally felt like my body was full of lead when I was trying to go and get ready for work, because everything within me, my soul, my body was like, no, 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 don't make us go there. And so it doesn't necessarily have to relate to work, but I would really encourage you to see where your body is like, no, I don't want to do that because, there's days that we don't feel inspired necessarily to show up for our responsibilities, like I said, but there's a difference between that versus feeling utter resistance, feeling utterly misaligned with what it is that we're doing, especially if it goes against our integrity or what it is that we believe in with the energy of Neptune. Really honor what feels right, as well as honor the wisdom of your body at this particular time. Because Neptune and Saturn can also be consequences that come about because we're not listening to our intuition. We're not listening to when something feels like a no. Like any sort of whisper that your body has been giving you, your intuition has been giving you, is turning to a scream this month and beyond. If the Saturn-Neptune alignment lands within the second house and or you are a Pisces rising, this message is for you. This reading is for you. This particular brave new beginning is showing up as it relates to your resources, as it relates to your finances, as it relates to your values. Some of you may feel inspired at this time and with years to come to create something new. You might have a certain idea that comes in your brain that almost like challenges the ways in which you've seen yourself prior around, could I possibly be an inventor? Could I possibly create this? A lot of you are Pisces risings, you're visionaries by nature. And with Saturn Neptune, some of your visions may make you money or break boundaries, break barriers around what people typically do. And it may be something new. It may be something that requires courage. You may not feel like there is a defined roadmap for you. I feel like part of this Neptune on Saturn, it's kind of dissolving any sort of illusion around linear structures of things, like an element around if you do this and this, then you'll get this. It's like with Neptune on Saturn, it's just kind of making a lot of us feel disillusioned around what we were told, what we were sold. And with the energy of Aries, there could be an energy around, I need to create my own luck. I have to create my own destiny. I have to create my own financial stability and security in a way that feels right for me. That may not be the traditional path or the typical path. Some of you, even if it's not how you earn money, there could be a new beginning that you are experiencing within your finances that is led both with practicality as well as spirit. You could just feel very led. You could feel very guided to step into this. Some of you may find that you are releasing a lot of possessions at this time, especially if they don't feel like you. You could be doing a mass overhaul of like anything that you own and Marie Kondo style, if it sparks joy. And what I'm defining that as is if it feels like you. Like Aries energy brings up a lot around identity. So even like going through your possessions and just really contemplating what feels like me and what was sold to me and told to me to be something that would make me happy or something that would give belonging or give acceptance. With Saturn on Neptune, you could just feel like any sort of illusion that you were in around how this particular pay bump was going to change everything or this particular possession would make me happy. You can have this sort of like disillusion around that. It's said within the hedonic treadmill that it just takes 3 months for us to adjust to any sort of new thing within our life, especially if we think it's going to make us happy, especially material possessions. We think, oh, this purse is going to change my life, or when I'm making this much, it's going to change my life. And sometimes we get there and it's like, now we want more. Our expenses raise. And now the next income jump will be what will fix it all. There can be an element within this experience around never being satisfied. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like Aries energy wants to challenge ourselves. It wants to conquer. It wants to create. But it's really important to set intrinsic goals that mean something to you. Because I just feel like some of you could be looking at your stuff and your junk and you're just like, how did I blow my money on this? Or how did I think this was going to fix this or something like this? Or you could just see through it around, I'm not going to go and buy all of this stuff just because this is what's told to me. Like I really want to live a life that is in more alignment and integrity with who I want to be. Some of you, not all, but some of you could even feel like you want to take a pay cut at this time in order to get more quality of life or to do something that feels more meaningful or something like this. Some of you could have a more spiritual perspective on money, or you're really contemplating how you see yourself through the lens of your financial status, and you could kind of blur those boundaries. If you see yourself at a certain income level, if you see yourself within a certain status, of course, it takes physical effort to change our financial situation with Saturn, but with Neptune, it's kind of like this contemplation around where it is that you are imprinted to respond to money, and particularly how it is that we see ourselves. And so you could have some contemplation around how you still see yourself as someone who's struggling to get by, even if you're making way more, or If you had, fight for survival, that imprints on your nervous system. There could be an energy where accumulating lots of money may not feel safe. So you spend it right away or you never spend it. Like there might be an energy around how is it that I view myself financially, as well as view myself in terms of my worthiness. That's really what I want to bring up here, because second house, yes, is money and possessions, but it is your self-worth. And so with Saturn Neptune, some of you are really doing your due diligence around sorting through certain projections or assumptions that you had or other people saw you as. I've shared this in Magic Monday, my weekly horoscope before, but if there is a really famous, expensive painting that is marked at the Goodwill by an individual who's not necessarily well-versed in painting, it will be set for $10. Even if it's like a painting that's worth millions of dollars, the value is not always in the eye of the beholder, the true value of a painting or of ourselves. And so some of you are really sorting through where you've been mishandled, where you've been undervalued, and sorting through, is that true around my own value, my own worthiness? Where have I internalized it? Neptune energy absorbs. Where have I felt like this is true? This is my value. This is my worth. Where has this job, this toxic job made me feel like this is all that I'm worth? Where is this toxic relationship made me feel like this is all that I'm worth? And is this true about me? There's like an element of Saturn Aries around like purifying self and purifying worthiness. If you are an entrepreneur, there could be an energy around raising your prices at this time, recognizing the worth that you bring to what it is that you do and how not everybody will understand it. Like you have to know it, other people will not. And you can even just be shifting your pricing structure altogether at this time, and doing so from both practical analysis with Saturn, but also intuitive awareness with the energy of Neptune. Second house is also values. So some of you are experiencing this merging between your physical, tangible life and Neptune, your higher connection awareness. So some of you could be investing in your spiritual journey in some sort of way. Some of you could start valuing your intuition, your instincts more so. Some of you could really strive to make decisions from a very value-based perspective, and even like honoring your spiritual values and allowing your spiritual values or your higher connection to be something that's very materialized within your physical world, something that's very evident in how it is that you navigate day to day. If the Saturn-Neptune conjunction aligns in the third house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. Many of you may be Aquarius Risings. Many of you may just have 0 degrees Aries located within the third house, but all of you are united as it relates to the powerful new cycle that you're stepping into around learning, communicating, distilling out a message. Let's get into it. So firstly, with the energy of 0 degrees Aries, as we've been connecting on, this is a potential energy, and it's also a new cycle that you're starting. And some of you may be in some new cycle as it relates to learning. Some of you are studying a particular topic. You are potentially even in school or getting some sort of certification, gaining some sort of skill set, or even just like reading a lot and taking a lot of data and research and studies and perspectives even. It's so fun when a topic genuinely fascinates you. Like it's such a special place to be in. And you may be in that space around really wanting to be a sponge and soak up as much information around a certain topic as possible. For some of you, this topic could be something very spiritual with the energy of Neptune. You could be deep diving into tarot, Reiki, or even gaining mastery in these particular themes, or enrolling in some sort of course in order to better understand these particular skills. And even if your special interest at this time, or what it is that you're absorbing a lot of information about, is not overtly Neptune, like what we think of when we think about spiritual practices, there can be an energy where you're learning about something that you feel can help other humans. Like Neptune to its core is very selfless. It's very compassionate. And we don't need to be in the spiritual arts in order to help individual souls. Like some of you could be learning about something because you genuinely have a desire to save the world. I'm talking to a lot of Aquarius Risings out there. So some of you could be studying a particular topic. It doesn't need to be overtly spiritual. For some it is, but you are very plugged into the recognition that this could really help people's journeys. There even could be recognition around learning about this is part of your purpose. And with the energy of Saturn, it does indicate this element of mastery. As we know about Aries, Aries can be impatient. It wants everything now. But Saturn energy may be asking you at this time to sort of slow your roll in order to build a really solid foundation as it relates to the topics that you are learning about or the topics that you want to distill out into the world. But what is important to know is that a lot of times we do gain experience by the doing. And if you have been holding yourself back because you're like, okay, after 5 more courses, then I'll finally feel qualified to speak out on this. And I want to be so clear. I do think for a lot of different practices, time is necessary, mastery is necessary, experience is necessary. But when it comes to Aries energy, it is very much around imperfect action over perfect planning. So particularly if there is something that you've been wanting to vocalize, but you're like, do I know enough? We need lots of different viewpoints, lots of different background to essentially speak up on particular topics or on particular ways of doing things. And if you do have this desire to help other humans, it's important to know that you only have to be a couple of steps ahead of somebody else of where they're in their journey or what they're aware of in order to make an impact within their lives or to make a difference within their lives. And it's also knowing that there are people out there who are way less qualified and educated than you are, who may be doing what it is that you desire to do or speaking out on what you desire to speak out about simply because they believe in themselves and believe in their capacity to share, even if sometimes they have teachable moments or they fumble on their words or things like that. This is not me saying that we need to throw caution to the wind. Like Saturn energy does really ask you at this time to be very disciplined and very diligent around what you speak up about and around, but really recognize where you are holding yourself back, restricting yourself. Because sometimes, we have a take or we say something and someone's like, actually, it's this, or have you considered this perspective? And we learn. Like the ask is to remain very teachable at this time, but sometimes in our effort around, okay, after I take 12 more classes, after I read 20 more studies, then I'll be able to speak up on something. And sometimes there's an energy around the moment has passed. And Aries energy is around instincts. And so really trusting yourself as a conduit, trusting your brain, even if you do have a tendency around sometimes outsourcing your thinking or thinking that nothing that you have to contribute to a situation is valid. Like with the energy of Aries, you can be stepping into a cycle around pulling from both your deep encyclopedia of knowledge with the energy of Saturn, while also honoring your own intuition, like with the energy of Neptune, like what is flowing through you. And again, for some, this can impact social media. Like for some of you, if you have been saying, this will be the year that I start social media, like this is the cycle to start. And this is what I'm getting at, is that sometimes we can feel like, oh, I need to take this influencer course in order to learn how to do this, or I need to edit this one piece of content until it's perfect. Especially in where we are now, things are moving fast. You gotta keep up with them. And while I do think it's important to stand by what you speak about, what you post about, what you know about, all of that, while it's important to stand by it, it's important to know that we learn from the act of posting, if that's it, or from the act of putting up podcast episodes. Each one gets better. And it's so much better to have that momentum rather than waiting a year time. You've taken 3 podcast course and you're just trying to have the most perfect execution plan. Things pivot, things shift. This very social media channel over here has had so many different pivots. Like I have a weekly astrology show. It's called Magic Monday, and we talk about the astrology for every single week. The first iteration of that was called Cosmic Coffee. I'm pretty sure some of those are available on my channel. I actually might have hid them. Have a little screen recording of them here because it was so different. It was just on my computer in the corner of this room, my bedroom at the time, but it became my office. And I would just film these little Cosmic Coffee episodes before going off to my 9 to 5, and I abandoned it because it wasn't the time. But I did have this desire where I wanted to communicate with individuals what was happening within the week's astrology, and I wanted to sip my coffee and talk about astrology. And it was not perfect. It was messy, but that was so instrumental to my path in order to eventually turn it into Magic Monday. And there might be other people who have podcasts or social media shows where you watch it and you get a lot of value in what they say, but you also have like this deep knowing around like, oh, I'm actually more knowledgeable about this topic, or I actually have a different perspective on this, or the unique facets of how it is that I am makes me a different candidate to put information out there. You know, all of us have a story to tell. All of us have something to share. And so it's really recognizing where you have been holding yourself back. You know, Neptune, outside of being a very spiritual planet, Neptune also governs cameras. So definitely fascinating if any of you have been wanting to set up a YouTube channel or do something on camera, or even just learning more about photography, as third house can have to deal with skill sets or things that we learn about. That can be a new cycle that you're stepping into. And if you're already doing a show, you already are on YouTube, you're already taking photos, there could be an opportunity to rebrand it or to start something new in that domain. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, Miss Haley Comet, I have no interest in being on camera, I have no interest in posting more on social media. Third house also governs the mind. And so some of you are really recognizing and chiseling the muscle that is your mind. And I do mean muscle with this Aries energy, because Neptune's there, and intuition is a muscle as well to be worked. And so some of you are recognizing that your mind is a conduit for all sorts of psychic or intuitive information that comes to you. And with the energy of Saturn, you're having to really chisel it and really understand it, because we're all intuitive. Every single person on this planet is intuitive, but it is a muscle to work that we're able to tap in like reliably. You have to take care of your mind in order to sort out what is yours versus what's not yours. Some of you could be receiving a flood of psychic information with Saturn energy, having to kind of limit yourself. That also could be showing up on social media as well, or just around information. You know, sometimes when certain things are happening in the news, there can be like a desire where we want to learn everything. And again, it's not to inhibit your curiosity by any means, but sometimes if something's very dark, very dismal, very depressing, and we are going to the bottom of it, feeling like we need to read up on every little bit of it, it affects our mental space. And this is not me saying to not be informed. It's important to be informed, but Saturn is asking you to be very intentional about what you are feeding your mind, because not only can that affect your overall mental perspective, but it also spiritually, you intake a lot of what you receive. So some of you could be limiting your access on social media. Some of you could like disrupt your algorithm in some sort of way. Like some of you could literally delete a certain social media app or set limits. But I'm even seeing like some of you could find a way to like refresh your algorithm or something like that, where it's like, okay, redo. My algorithm was pushing me down some rabbit holes that I don't want to be down. Like, let's do a redo. Like truly, this alignment is a reset button, as we talked about. So some of you could be doing that around your social media. Others of you, this can be showing up around siblings, around neighbors. That's a third house arena as well. Some of you could be leading something up for your community, for your neighbors, like for the people around you, stepping up as a leader with both vision, that's the energy of Neptune, and responsibility, that's the energy of Saturn. So some of you might get impatient waiting for something to happen within your community. Like, I've been waiting for this trash to go away, but I've got to do it. Like, you know, sometimes we just get impatient waiting for something to happen. And that's a good thing with Aries energy. Like, if there's been anything that we've been kind of like complacent with and stagnant, or, oh, someone else will do it. Aries energy is like, fine, I'll do it. I'll do it for myself. And in your case, I'll do it for my community even. So some of you could be organizing trash pickups. Some of you could be organizing to repaint certain crosswalks to make it safer, or something like this. You could be leading up some sort of community neighborhood project. I also want to mention third house governs vehicles, phones, technology altogether. So some of you could be stepping into a new frontier in those arenas as well. Perhaps some of you are dedicating yourself to taking more photos, like documenting and capturing more of your life, even if it's just for yourself with the energy of Aries. If Saturn conjunct Neptune aligns in your fourth house, this message is for you. You may be a Capricorn Rising. You may just have 0 degrees Aries within the fourth house. But either way, this massive new story, new start, new beginning is concentrated within the domain of home, the domain of family, the domain of emotional state. And I want to start first personally, because this is concentrated in Aries, which is the sign of self. So yes, there's family themes. We'll get into it. But when we talk about fourth house, it is the foundation that the rest of the chart is built upon. And it is the elements of your life that people may not see. It's very deep and very private and very personal to you. And so I want to start first with you, because I feel like a lot of you are advocating for yourself, advocating for your emotions in ways that feel very novel. Some of you could be enacting boundaries for yourself and your own emotional landscape in ways that feel more disruptive. There can be an element around recognizing that you pay the price when it comes to overstepping certain boundaries or taking on other responsibilities that are not necessarily yours to take on. There can be a new cycle that you are stepping into around enacting boundaries, yes, physically with the energy of Saturn, bearing access to maybe more sacred parts of yourself, of your life, but also spiritually with the energy of Neptune, not overgiving yourself, recognizing the emotional debris that you intake after other people dump on you. I just feel like with Saturn, Neptune aligning in your fourth house of emotions, some of you are just recognizing, great, I was this person's unofficial therapist, like this person just dumped all of their issues and problems, and then now I'm here sitting with it. Neptune energy is water energy. We absorb it. If someone were to go over to a bathtub and pour in Coca-Cola in it and be like, oh, I feel so much better. Now I don't have this Coca-Cola, but your bath water is now diluted with Coca-Cola. And it's like, great, I guess I'll just take this on. Some of you are just recognizing that. And maybe that's been a role that you've played within your life for your family structure for some time, but there might just be an energy around recognizing how heavy it can make you or how diluted your own essence feels like you need to protect your own authentic energy and do what's necessary to filter other people's stuff from your own. Because I just feel like for a lot of you, you've been intaking and absorbing, and it feels really soggy. When I think about Saturn energy, it's heavy. And then when I think of Neptune energy, it's wet. So it just feels like you might feel like a soggy towel intaking other people's stuff. And it genuinely can come from a good place. I mean, I'm talking to a lot of Capricorn Risings. You all are very reliable. People know that they can turn on you, but you are stepping into a cycle where you are a little bit more sensitive. So things that might have used to fly with you are no longer flying with you, or at least you're feeling the weight or the consequence of it, where it's like, I used to be able to stay late and have this person talk to me on the phone for hours and hours and hours and still feel energized, but now I feel drained. I feel depleted. I think a lot of you are stepping into a new cycle where you have an enhanced level of emotional intelligence for yourself. Like you're really witnessing and remaining very mindful of self and how you feel before interactions and how you feel after interactions and how your emotional landscape is before certain things and after certain things. And you're recognizing what is leaving you feeling soggy. And beyond just recognizing it, you are, or at least my encouragement would be, enforcing boundaries around the Coca-Cola dumpers of the world, or just individuals who just take a lot from you and don't give, or just leave you feeling very drained and depleted emotionally. I'm also seeing for some of you, you're really just prioritizing your emotions and how you feel. Some of you could be seeking out therapy. Some of you could be really talking about things for the first time. Some of you could really be prioritizing things that are more sacred beyond what your outer reality needs and requires to thrive. There can be a real reset within your life where you're building new cycles down to the foundations. Who am I? What am I about? And yes, fourth house energy can bring up past energy, ancestral past, and family lineage. So some of you can be recognizing the karma that you have because of your bloodline in some sort of way with the Saturn influence. And Neptune's very spiritual. So like recognizing perhaps your purpose or your calling as it relates to your bloodline, as it relates to your lineage, whether it's breaking free of certain cycles. This alignment lands at the very first degree of the zodiac. And so there can be an energy around being the first in your family to do something or the first in your family to not do something. And that is a weight, right? That is a responsibility that's heavy with the energy of Saturn. But when you recognize the spiritual why of something, it gives it context within your life. And with Neptune, there can be some spiritual awareness of your family and your family line. And perhaps for some of you, even navigating forgiveness, or even if it's not forgiveness quite yet, recognizing, oh, this family was in pain and that's why they repeated this certain cycle. It doesn't take away what you went through or what they did, the choices that they made, but sometimes it's helpful to take into account the subtext or the nuance around individuals. That doesn't mean you need to give them access into your life, your intimate life. I think Saturn energy is you being very cautious who it is that you let in, but it just can give you more context for you to be able to move forward or just recognize, like, spiritually, I see why being abandoned at this age set me up to learn these particular skills. Doesn't make it okay, but I recognize the uniqueness of my journey. Like the Aries energy is the uniqueness of you, and also like the warrior spirit that you have, the independent spirit that you have, where there even could be threads of that you're witnessing through your bloodline, like coming from a lineage of fighters, of survivors, of individuals who told you how important it is for you to be self-sufficient. Or maybe you are stepping into that. Maybe you're the first of the bloodline to be self-sufficient. Maybe you recognize how having to be self-sufficient made you now like hyper independent and like over responsible for your life. There's just a recognition how these themes work together and a desire to start a new cycle for yourself, but also for everyone in your ancestry, everybody in your lineage. Fourth house also brings about themes of your physical property, your land, your home. So yes, there can be a new cycle that is starting there. Some of you could want to move away from family or move out of a family home or just have a new beginning as it relates to home altogether. And just knowing that this aspect is truly a blank slate. It's truly a fresh new start for new beginnings, even if it doesn't feel possible at this moment to be sufficient enough to live on your own, or to have a home that feels utterly safe for your children, or to have a home environment where you break free from these ancestral patterns. Aries energy asks us to be courageous, to be daring, and most of all, to be brave. You're being asked to be brave, to start new cycles, break old patterns, and to advocate for yourself and for your own emotions, to advocate for your sensitivity, to advocate for your vulnerability, to advocate for where within your life you did not feel capable enough. If Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries will occur within your fifth house, this message is for you. Some of you are Sagittarius risings. Some of you just have 0 degrees Aries located in the fifth house, but all of you have a powerful reset around your creative expression. A lot of you are stepping into a new era. Like if you were a pop star, this is giving a rebrand. This is giving new era. This is giving that moment when your fave archives all of their posts on their Instagram and has like a moody little prof pic. And then in the description, it's like new single coming on this date. Like that's where you're at. Even if you're not a pop star, you are rebranding. Or at least you're feeling this new cycle surge around yourself and your creativity and your art and your self-expression all together. And it might be something very new. And it's the focal point of this energy altogether. It doesn't get newer and fresher than 0 degrees Aries. It also doesn't get bolder than 0 degrees Aries. And so some of you are stepping into a brave new beginning as it relates to your artistry, as it relates to your creation. And it may push against what people expect of you or what is normal. You know, the very nature of Neptune is that it does dissolve boundaries. Again, Saturn strives to be very boundaried. But with these two together, there can be an energy around essentially creating things that people are not doing. Like the girls are not doing it like this. The other people are not doing it like this. Like there can be something within your artistry that is coming forth, that is bold, that is new, that is fresh, because it's very authentic. That's the thing. It's not striving to be unconventional and avant-garde just for its own sake. It's like, no, this is genuinely how I want to express myself. This is genuinely the art I want to be making. This is genuinely the art that lights me up. And there even could be courage codes that you dispel to other people through your artistry, through your music, through your fashion, through however it is that you express yourself. Because I don't mean to alienate anybody who doesn't necessarily define themselves as a creative when it relates to this. Because fifth house, yes, it's projects that we birth out, right? Creative endeavors, but it's also around essentially how it is that we express ourselves all together. And you never know how you can make a difference just by being your own person. You know, it is said that when you are fully and authentically yourself, you give other people the permission to be fully themselves as well. And to look at things, the status quo and tradition and the linear path that Saturn, right? Neptune energy being stronger within this conjunction dissolves it around kind of seeing through the programming around what could have been like told and sold to you around the one way to live, or this is what you need to be doing. Like there can be an energy where you're like, no, what's important is for me to chart the course and to express myself and to be the ways that feel like my own, and to dissolve any rules that don't align with me personally or don't make sense for me personally. And some of you could be kind of like breaking the rules as it relates to your artistry, as it relates to your creativity, as it relates to your hobby even. You know, fifth house is fun. And so some of you are letting go of old definitions of fun, what you used to find pleasure and passion within, and you're stepping into something new, or at least pivoting how it is that you go about that particular hobby. Like some of you could be joining like a new league of some sort, or stepping into a new specialty as it relates to this particular hobby, or just stepping into an era where you are prioritizing your joy. You are prioritizing the things that light you up, and you're not apologizing. You know, Aries energy is very unapologetic. It's like, I'm not apologizing for wanting to live in the ways that feel good for me. I'm not apologizing for my yeses or my nos. That's really something I see so clearly here, is that there's just an energy around owning your passions, owning what you like, owning what you don't like. Why would I say yes to something, a social invitation, a party, a date, if I would be lukewarm about it? Like Aries energy is, if it's not a hell yes, deep in your soul, it's a hell no. And Saturn's influence here, it just brings about the consequence that comes when you give your time and energy to things that are not a hell yes, where then you have to sit through this thing and you're like, I wish I was somewhere else. You know, Neptune energy can be very leaky. And so it's asking, where's kind of the leak of your energy that's taking away from things that do light you up, or where it is that you do have fun or like to express yourself, fifth house energy. And with the two together, you can be stepping into a new cycle as it relates to dating. Maybe some of you have not been dating, and this is you muscling the energy in order to put yourself out there in some regard. Maybe some of you are in a committed relationship. You know, I'm not kidding, the day Saturn entered my fifth house, I entered a committed relationship. And the reason I tie those together, because fifth house in and of itself is not necessarily a committed relationship, like put a ring on it. Fifth house is fun and flirty and passionate energy. Saturn typically restricts that. So it's like Saturn fifth house being taken off the market, like not dating because you've locked it down with someone and not being able to be like, you know, courted or pursued. So that could be a manifestation for some. What I will say when it comes to dating, when it comes to romance, some of you are going to have the rose-colored glasses kind of stripped off around someone that you've been dating. You know, Saturn energy really challenges us to see things and people as they are, not as we want them to be, with the energy of Neptune. And so a lot of you could really have this recognition around, this is the person. Like, would I accept this person as they are now? You know, Aries energy doesn't believe in potential. In that we all have potential within us, right? But Aries energy to its core is very impatient. So it's like, would you accept this person as they are right now? Because a lot of times people do not change. It's just the Neptune energy that projects, oh, they could do this and they could be this. But like Aries energy is like, would you accept this person and be happy if they remain how they are? Because it's not fair to be like, oh yeah, I would tweak this about them and tweak this. Like, granted, when we fall in love, oftentimes that does prompt us to want to change and want to be ourselves, but the person themselves has to want it. And so if you've been kind of like wasting time believing the potential in someone, the energy of Saturn, Neptune could be just feeling the consequences around who you've built someone up to be, or at least having a moment of disillusionment around seeing it clearly. Even if that's in a past tense, like lovers in a past tense, looking at past situations and looking at how it is that you broke your own rules and you blurred your own boundaries and you gave people chances when they shouldn't have had chances, and you saw potential where there wasn't any. Like Saturn, Neptune could just be recognizing that. And, you know, like I said, some of you could be stepping into a new cycle with dating. Some of you could be stepping out of dating, whether it's because of a committed relationship or just recognizing patterns of limerence. If that's been something that you struggled with, recognizing patterns of going for people who are emotionally unavailable. And with the energy of Saturn, you're really seeing the weight as it relates to who it is that you choose to date and be in love with. Like, you are taking it seriously with the energy of Saturn, and not just because of the physical ramifications and the physical components, Saturn energy, like time wasted, things like that. Neptune energy is also like spiritual debris, that to a spiritual level, the more time that you spend with someone, the more that you do soak up their qualities. Again, always remaining fiercely and truly yourself. with the energy of Aries, and a lot of you are Sagittarius risings. To thine own self be true always. But to a soulful level, especially if we're very physical and very intimate, we do blend and merge energy with that person. So I'd also say, pay attention if you exchange energy in that way and then you feel drained, you feel utterly depleted. That can sometimes be a sign that someone is kind of like depleting your energy. And it's always just sort of interesting when you are engaging with someone, you're recognizing how drained and depleted you feel and how that person is sparkling and glowing and never felt better. It's like, okay, there's an energetic cord here. Is this like giving back to me, right? Is it pouring into me as much as I'm pouring into it? There could just be a recognition of that. Another focal point at this time can be children, whether it's children that you have, children that you want to have, children that you don't want to have, your own inner child. Children can be noteworthy here. And as it relates to children that you have, there can be this energy of enacting boundaries, both physical and spiritual, with the energy of Neptune there. There can be a feeling of the weight of having a child, and not just the physical weight, the financial weight, like the physical components of having a child, that's Saturn, but like the spiritual components of it, where it's a huge responsibility to have a child and to support them navigate the matrix. Like that is a huge responsibility. And so some of you could be really feeling that and questioning if it is for you. You know, I don't mean to say this to influence you in any direction, because it's a very personal decision. All of us are unique in that way with the energy of Aries. But it said a lot of individuals, when they are on one of their final lifetimes, if that's a concept that resonates, sometimes will not necessarily feel drawn to having children because there's a desire where they don't want to leave karma on this physical plane. And so maybe that's something that you're contemplating, because there's like a physical weight of it with Saturn as well as the spiritual recognition of it. So that could be something you're wrestling with. You may be navigating certain delays as it relates to conceiving or having a child with the energy of Saturn. And with Neptune, like potentially even looking to spiritual modalities in order to gain answers, whether it's like connecting with spirit babies, even with Neptune, looking at your astrology, like there can be an energy around looking at that, or looking at these themes in order to better understand children that you have within this physical experience. There also just could be a recognition of your own inner child and a desire to work the muscle of connecting with your inner child and recognizing the spiritual weight that they've been holding, how they are alive and breathing within you, and they deserve your care. They deserve your nurturing. If Saturn and Neptune will conjoin within the 6th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. Some of you may be Scorpio ascendants. Some of you may just have 0 degrees Aries located within the 6th house, but all of you are experiencing a new beginning around your day-to-day, around your health, around your work. So let's get into this. I want to say some of you, yes, could be stepping into a new job or even stepping into a brand new industry, like something different that you do for work altogether. And it's important to note here that 6th house is not the only house in the chart that has to deal with work. Like when we talk about work, a lot of times we talk about 10th house because that is the domain of the chart that governs career, public persona, and how it is that you are seen in the outer world. 6th house, yes, governs work, but it's more so the actual work that you do, the labor that you do. 10th house is what you're known for. You're having a new start as it relates to the work that you do. So some of you could be working in the same company, but shifting positions. Some of you could be doing something totally different as it relates to work. Some of you could be taking on some sort of side job or some sort of freelance gig in order to free up more time for what it is that you want to do within the outer world. There can be a new beginning as it relates to how it is that you spend your minutes and your days and your hours. If you work for yourself, Aries is a very independent sign. So some of you are craving to work for yourself, to own your own time, knowing that oftentimes being an entrepreneur, you work a lot of times around the clock and all of the wins and the losses are on your shoulders, like recognizing that is a responsibility when you are doing your own thing. But for a lot of you, it's worth it. Like I would rather work 14 hours a day and make a fraction of the paycheck if I could own my time, if I could decide where my time goes. Like some of you are stepping into that, acknowledging it's a challenge with the energy of Aries, but it's a challenge worth taking. And there's just such a desire where you're wanting to own your time. You're wanting to own your life. And be able to have domain over your schedule, being very intentional with what you give your energy to. Because with the energy of Neptune, Neptune can get very leaky. Energetically, emotionally. It can also get very leaky with our time and our schedule with the energy of sixth house. So you may find that you're stepping into a new cycle where you are a bit more sensitive as it relates to your work environment or your work altogether. Where before you might have been able to take 6 or 7 calls, no problem. But now it's like you feel exhausted after every single call because Neptune energy makes us more sensitive. We intake more. So as you are getting more sensitive, it's taking more of a toll on you, not just your physical time, which we'll get into that with Saturn energy. You could feel like you have a lot of pressure on you, a lot of responsibility on you. But with Neptune energy, it's also like the emotional, the spiritual consequences that we pay around giving people our time and our energy and pouring out to them. I even feel this will not be a message for all of you, but for some of you, you've got to dial it back. Like, I feel like some of you give 140% and think it's 100%, but from an outer perspective, your 75% in your mind, what you would consider 75%, would be somebody else's 100%. Sometimes there's such a desire to give and to be of service and to overachieve sometimes that we just pour a lot out and then you feel depleted and you feel drained. And maybe you're in a workplace where that's expected, where that's even demanded, like Saturn energy can make it clear, but there just could be a recognition around this is not very loving to myself. Like this takes such a toll on me. This takes so much out of me. I feel drained. I feel depleted. I feel that I have nothing to give and like feeling the weight of that. And so some of you are learning to coast a little bit in your mind. To an outer perspective, nobody would think it's coasting, but just to learn that you don't need to go above and beyond every single time. That sometimes when you go above and beyond, people don't even know what to do with all of that energy or all of that information. And so it's okay to kind of set limits around what it is that you give to certain situations, even if at this point in time you don't have the literal limits over what is on your schedule. Because ultimately with this new cycle, it's taking a level of responsibility around where is my time going? And also looking at, gosh, after every call, I have to go like sit in a dark room for 30 minutes just to feel like a human again. Like this is not sustainable. Like some of you are having to plug the leaks within your schedule. And maybe it's like less one-on-one calls. Maybe it's putting certain hours on your schedule as busy so that your boss can't put random meetings in there. And so you could just be plugging the leaks on your time, plugging the leaks on your energy, recognizing in big and small ways the toll that everything takes on you. The physical toll, whether it's your time, but also like the spiritual toll, your energy, your nervous system regulation. Like Neptune here can make you more sensitive. And it's important to really learn what your own system is telling you, whether that's your physical vessel or your soul. Like recognizing, okay, I am drained after one-on-one calls, or not having any human interaction in a day exhausts me. Like, how can we have a new cycle? How can I step into a working life that really honors the unique person that I am, and believing that that could exist. If you are wanting a new job or a new way to be of service, like really writing down what works best for you and how it is that you are uniquely designed to serve other individuals, and knowing that that could exist. It may take a lot of work or even sacrifice with the energy of Saturn to build something that works for you, but it's just really getting to know yourself and really contemplating how your time, your energy is your own, and wanting to be the best steward over it as possible. Sixth house also has to deal with health. So a lot of you are stepping into a new cycle of really taking care of yourself, your physical vessel. Some of you may be a little bit more diligent or disciplined around your physical body, but it's also recognition around how some of these shifts also impact our intuition or our soul. Like, for example, I feel like I am the clearest channel when I'm eating whole foods and I'm eating enough every single day, when I am not drinking and not exposing myself to certain things. Like that does impact our ability to hear our own intuition and to exercise our own discernment is the ways that we take care of our physical vessel. It does impact our soul. Some of you could step into a new cycle regarding responsibility for pets. Sixth house governs small animals. So some of you could get a pet or you could start fostering, and it can be, yes, a dedication of your time, very finite resource with the energy of Saturn, but also you could feel very connected to a soul level. You know, some of you could start volunteering. You could start some sort of initiative at your work or around coworkers in order to make a difference. You know, sometimes we feel like purpose needs to be this huge thing that impacts millions upon millions of people, that we have to be known by everybody to make a difference, but it can start in your own workplace. Like some of you could influence your coworkers around something. Some of you also, if you are self-employed, sixth house does govern people that we employ. So some of you could even have a new cycle as it relates to hiring someone to help you build a certain vision, or being very intentional about where your time and energy is going, Saturn, and recognizing in order to build this vision, I need support in these particular arenas. You know, Aries energy can sometimes be go at it alone. So I do feel like some of you could be starting something, some sort of side hustle or side gig. And some of you are recognizing you're having to take charge of your vision, recognizing we can only do so much. You know, to build anything, we have to be so aware of our own deficiencies, of our own blind spots. And that can require, you know, hiring out your deficiencies, hiring out your blind spots. Yes, if you're building a business, but for others of you could just recognize, you know, getting to know yourself, you recognize I have such time blindness that having this particular role supports me, because then I have someone to kind of keep me on track. Or it's recognizing I am just not somebody who cleans and organizes every single day. Would be a worthy investment to hire someone to help me around the home. Like there just could be some sort of recognition around that, around not being too hard on yourself, around, oh, you're so not good enough because of this, but it's just recognizing, hey, I'm just one person. I only have this many hours of the day. How is it that I can allocate? Because whether you work for yourself or not, regardless of what your working world looks like, or your service looks like, your volunteering looks like, your time is your own. And this cycle really implores you to take full responsibility and accountability over your time and where you give it. It is your resource to spend, as well as your price that you pay if you give it to things that are not good for you, that are not good for the vision that you're building, where you have a high cost of what something takes from you. Sometimes we have this period where we have to like recoup our energy. It's not just the hour for the particular meeting. It's like the 2 hours after where you need to recover. You know, we're all different. Some people love meetings and that really lights them up. And for them, time where they're not connecting with people is more draining. It's just really intimately getting to know yourself, your ideal schedule, and to be able to allocate your time and your energy as such. If Saturn and Neptune will conjoin within the 7th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Libra Rising. You may just have 0 degrees Aries located within the 7th house, but you are stepping into a new cycle around your marriage, around your partners, around your business collaborators. So let's get into it. Ultimately, 7th house is the house of other. So you are stepping into a new cycle around how it is that you partner and work with others, and potentially advocating for yourself in novel ways. You know, novel is kind of the name of the game. When we talk about 0 degrees Aries, you could be relating to people in a totally different way, a way that feels very foreign to you, especially if certain ways that you've been interacting with others have not been healthy, have not been sustainable. Saturn energy really pressurizes any territory that it goes through and makes it very clear where something's not sustainable. Where sometimes we can get by, you know, people pleasing or being over accommodating or putting other people above ourselves. That will work for some time. At a certain point, it will no longer work. It will get grating. It will get heavy. Sometimes something happens within your life where you just physically don't have the energy to do that anymore. You're in a certain life stage where it's like, okay, well, now that I'm a parent, I can't do A, B, and C for you anymore. Or now that my hormones are changing, I'm entering menopause, I'm entering this new era of my life, I'm no longer willing to tolerate what I used to tolerate. Or because I am now partnered, I no longer have this energy to be fully available at the drop of the hat for your stuff. Like there just could be an energy where it's like, not me. At least not anymore. Like, you got the wrong idea. And Saturn energy is just kind of poking out certain behaviors that you have within others and what's no longer sustainable. And it's really important when you set any sort of boundary, because I feel like a lot of you are, around how you will and will not be treated. It's always interesting when you set up a boundary, what happens within connections after. Because for some of you, you could just be essentially in a new cycle with your spouse, and you're like, okay, this is not okay with me. It's important what happens after, because Neptune energy can be very leaky. It can kind of dissolve the boundary around, I know you said this, but what about this? It can kind of like push your limits a bit. And so it's really important to honor like who genuinely respects your boundaries and honors why they're there, who sees you as a full and complete person on your own and honors what you need in order to thrive. Because with the energy of Neptune, you can find that some people are acting a little funny as it relates to certain boundaries that you have around trying to finagle their way around it or thinking that the rules don't apply to them, especially if they are accustomed to trampling your boundaries. Like, Aries energy can be a very mad energy. And I'm not saying this is going to show up for everyone, but you could even have certain individuals who are a little mad around, what are you doing? You're not letting me take advantage of you like you typically do. It's like, yeah, new cycle, new Saturn, Neptune cycle, new me. A new way of relating is really the focus here. Whether or not you are married or not, whether or not you are in a business partnership, you could just have a new cycle around the expectations that you have as it relates to your one-on-one partnerships, where it's like, yeah, I was fine making all around you, but now I'm going through something and I need support and I'm allowed to have support. Or an energy around, yeah, that worked for the first chunk of our marriage before I went to therapy, but now I recognize where this coping strategy came from and it doesn't work anymore. And the best sort of relationships will grow with you, will evolve with you. And even for some of you, if you are not married, but you want to be, Saturn energy could be you really raising the bar around, I'm not putting up with things that I used to put up with. You know, if you are married or in a serious relationship, Saturn energy can make things very challenging. And there is an element of accountability, like recognizing where it is that you have not been the best partner, but also really feeling the weight of having abandoned yourself. If you have abandoned yourself in any sort of relationship, feeling that, because that also doesn't make you a great partner. You know, sometimes we think that utterly abandoning ourselves or leaving the room when we're in connection makes us the best partner, because then we fully morph into what the other person wants or expects of us. But if anything, it just makes you a shell of a person. You're not fully there in order to be the best partner that you could be. And so sometimes prioritizing yourself actually strengthens any sort of bond or any sort of connection. At least the right ones do. You should not be in any sort of connection that requires you to abandon yourself. And I think this particular cycle for you is that you're no longer willing to, and you're really looking hard at your patterns in relating, recognizing, why is it that I go for people who are emotionally unavailable? Why do I go for people who project a certain fantasy? Why do I get bored with the middles of things? You know, I love the beginning. I love when it's hot and heavy. And then when I'm in a serious relationship, now I'm fantasizing about other people with the energy of Neptune. And it's recognizing that. Again, it's human nature where obviously, you know, things get mundane at a certain point, things get routine, and it's not a crime to have like harmless crushes or things like that. Neptune energy can sometimes spiral into, you know, not so harmless. Okay. So being mindful of that, especially if you recognize that you're doing that because there's certain needs that are not being fulfilled within your relationship, or if there is this idealization that you have around relationships around, this person should make me feel like this all of the time, or problems should not exist if I'm in a particular relationship. It's just being very clear around what within you causes you to fantasize or look outside of the connection, and taking a hard look at that, as well as your own essentially programming. If you sort of like love when it's a little further away, if you kind of like the chase, if you like the beginnings of things, there can be an ask to look at that. Or you could be interacting with people like that, or having dealt with experiences like that. And with Saturn energy, after you go through those experiences, a lot of times it's very painful, but then you have the gift of experience where then you're like, okay, not around here, partner, not around here. And some of you could be really looking at connections through a more realistic lens, really seeking to see it clearly, whether it's existing or past. You know, Saturn on Neptune can be very disillusioning around taking the rose-colored glasses off, around being able to see someone clearly. Some of you may even find like a spouse's lie is revealed, a business partner's lie is revealed, or at least you're seeing them clearly around, oh, I used to think that you were so cool because of A, B, and C, but now I see that you're actually kind of a loser. Sorry, that was kind of mean. Sometimes we hold people in a different regard, but then with time, with wisdom, with experience, we look back and we're like, oh no, you were a loser. And you took advantage of me because of A, B, and C. You know, it just like makes me think of certain experiences that I had when I was young. And unfortunately, so many individuals on this planet have also had when they were young, where, you know, someone who's older likes you. And you think, oh my gosh, it's because I'm so mature for my age. It's because of this and that. And it's like, now I look back at those people now being the age of them when they were dealing with me. And I'm like, oh no, that was a loser who couldn't impress people their own age. You know, sometimes we have a certain allure of something around, oh, they're so mysterious and they're so this. And then with time and experience, we're like, no, they're a loser. Sorry, I keep saying that word, but that's loser behavior, to take advantage of and manipulate people much younger than you because they don't know any better. Loser behavior. Again, that's only my experience. This could be showing up in a myriad of ways where you're just seeing something clearly, where sometimes if someone gets a hold on you, like gets you in a chokehold, like a psychological chokehold, you have some sort of trauma bond with them, or you're on and off with them, you don't see them clearly. And I just see some of you could just be like, wow, underneath the chemistry and the intensity, like now I see this for what it is and I want no part. A lot of times when you see it for what it is, you don't want any part of it. And so some of you could be in that space. And you're also just recognizing, as it relates to how it is that you interact with others, there's just an energy where it's like, no more Mr. Nice Guy, no more Mrs. Nice Gal, where it's just like, be kind, be courteous, be compassionate. The world needs that. And Neptune energy is asking all of us to be kind and understanding around other people. But I just see that some of you are recognizing that your giving nature attract a lot of takers. And so there's an energy with Saturn around, yeah, no more. Not around here, not around here. As well as looking clearly at your patterns within relationships. Do you have a tendency to morph into the other person's desire? Do you have a tendency to push off your own desires in the name of helping this person build their life? This energy is asking you to really look at that. If Saturn and Neptune align in your 8th house, this message is for you. Some of you are Virgo risings. Some of you just have 0 degrees Aries in the 8th house, but all of you are stepping into a massive new cycle of transformation. 8th house is where we surrender control. And I'm talking to a lot of Virgo risings, so I know that is very uncomfortable. And keep in mind, Aries energy wants us to take accountability, take responsibility over our life, over our desires. But you're actually stepping into a cycle in which you are recognizing how little control you have over the big things of life. Like when we think about 8th house, it's death and taxes. Like we don't have a whole lot of control of when it's time to go, and a lot of times taxes. And with the energy of Saturn, you're having to work at a level of still feeling powerful over things in life that make you feel powerless, where you could be kind of grappling with your own mortality, or even recognizing how people around you are aging, or death, something that could have felt to be very far is now kind of like just around the river bend, and you might be like feeling an anxiety of that. And that's the energy of Saturn, is that it's life. Like that is an unfortunate component of this experience, is that there will be a day and time for all of us to go, and we do not get to control when that day and time arrives. So is that very knowing going to fill you with panic and dread, or is it going to fill you with an immediacy and an urgency to seize this particular moment, this particular cycle? You know, there's no relief from those sort of thoughts. Like, we are going to perish, and everybody we know is going to perish. And I know that seems harsh, but like Aries energy is just the honesty of it. And again, Virgo rising, not in balance, can some spiral and have so much anxiety around what's the point of when it's going to happen? Like just a lot of anxiety. Or there could just be a freedom around, yeah, that's going to happen. How is it that I can seize this particular moment and spend all of the time with those that I love and take photos and seize the moment, even seize my own desires, the ones that I'm even scared to name. I feel like some of you are claiming your desires, giving yourself full permission to want what you want, to want who you want. Hey, you never know. And kind of taking things that you've pushed into the shadows of your own psyche. Because we tend to think of eighth house. Yes, it's our shadow work. Yes, it's fears and our psyche and our trauma. But it's also like the desires that live in our shadow, where sometimes we are fearful to name what we really want, where it's like, yeah, I want to be a millionaire. Yeah, I want this sort of marriage. Yeah, I want this. And it's like sometimes because of shame or because it doesn't feel feasible, we push that down. And I feel for a lot of us, Saturn and Neptune Aries is bringing up themes of imposter syndrome. But like for you, it's like the desires that you've pushed into the crevices and have not given yourself full permission to want or to chisel. And recognizing with that eighth house energy, this life is mine to live. If I don't get what I want out of it, nobody will. Not one soul will. And some of you are experiencing certain themes as it relates to your partner's income or any sort of shared revenue, where if you are reliant on a spouse or on a business partner or on certain investments, there can be an element around feeling a little bit of a limit as it relates to these themes. Not that everybody's going broke. Don't panic. If anything, Aries energy asks us to take things moment by moment and not go down the rabbit hole of eighth house energy, but it's asking you to take a level of responsibility as it relates to shared resources. So that could mean double checking on any sort of advisor that you work with. If you have a financial advisor, like checking on your accounts, checking on what's going in and out, checking on shared accounts, like taking a level of responsibility as it relates to shared resources. Some of you might even get some stream of income or want to contribute more, even if that was not the case before. Neptune's there, which can sometimes make us want to turn a blind eye around. I'm sure, my spouse is investing in retirement for us. I'm sure my financial advisor isn't skimming money off of me. This is not me saying to live in fear and paranoia, but Saturn energy is asking you to take a level of responsibility around these particular domains. And with this energy in the eighth house, there can be something that you're working on in order to set yourself up. Like really set yourself up. We tend to think of Saturn energy as just restriction and loss energy, which it can be, but it's also around setting yourself up for the long term. So yes, there can be an energy where you do feel like temporarily you have less resources available for you to build towards retirement, for you to build and invest in order to live off the passive revenue in the future. Like making decisions at this time that benefit future you, even if present you, it's like, oh, I'm not able to do this as much. You might be making certain decisions for a future version of self. You might be on some sort of strict tax plan, or even some of you could be stepping into entrepreneurship and recognizing like the weight around taxes that is at times. Some of you could be stepping into a new cycle around being supported by others. And again, Aries energy knows that at the end of the day, we can only count on ourselves. Again, it's great if people are offering us support, but Aries energy is, I came into this planet alone and I'm going to leave alone. And I don't mean that in a depressing way. You will have many collaborators and friends and lovers and partners and all of the things, but it's like knowing that you can't trust anybody on this plane as deeply as you can trust yourself. And what I mean by that is that, yes, there can be an element where you're stepping into a new cycle where you're married and now there's joint resources, right? Joint finances, or you're stepping into a new era where you are receiving support from another. You're receiving child support or alimony. It's really important. If someone says they're going to do this and that, like you need to see the receipts with the energy of Saturn, as well as you need to be wise. So if you are in a situation where you are dependent on somebody else and you don't want to be, like I said, it could be taking a level of responsibility over your finances, bringing in income. But sometimes, you gotta buy a gift card when you are getting groceries at the store in order to plan, set yourself up for the long term, think long term can be an element here. And there can be a new cycle that you're stepping into around wealth, really, is what we think of when we think of eighth house. And I want to be so clear. This is not get rich quick scheme energy with Aries, and especially with Neptune there. Don't believe any sort of lie that you're being told around, oh, this is going to triple this, or this is going to make you a millionaire overnight. Like, see the receipts with the energy of Saturn. If that were the case, everybody would be doing it. Like Neptune energy in this sector can make us more of a candidate for snake oil salesmen or sleazy financial advisors, things like that. Like you do need to have a level of discernment and responsibility over your resources and how you're being helped. But it's important to know that 8th house gets into things such as like royalties. It gets into things such as our investments, dividends, passive income, things like this. And with Saturn, you could be really looking at that critically around how is it that I can set myself up? How can I set myself up for retirement? How is I set myself up so that when I'm sleeping, I'm making money? Like, how can I set myself up where I'm not dependent on my physical labor in order to make money? And also looking at it critically around how can I set myself up where I'm not dependent on this person for the end of time. Like some of you could even be recognizing, maybe you're in a really amazing marriage. You have a great business partner. This is not me saying to live in fear and to live in paranoia, but it's just knowing, at the end of the day, just because my business partner said I'll get a 49% cut when we get this doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. How can I get that in writing? Or just because my partner says that they will cover my retirement doesn't mean that they actually will. Let me make sure my name's on the deed of the house. Things like that, where it's just that level of responsibility around selling me a dream is nice with the energy of Neptune, but I got to see receipts. And I feel like a lot of you are uniquely equipped around that because of what you've navigated, having Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house, where you've known, people can sell you a dream, but then when it's time to collect, all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. And so you're being asked to be very discerning about that. And for some of you, you could be stepping into a new cycle around witchcraft or learning something within the occult. You could be diving deep. And honestly, with the energy of Aries, feeling like dialing into this sort of knowledge is making you actually feel more powerful, is making you feel more yourself, really. If the Saturn-Neptune conjunction will occur within the 9th house of your natal chart, this message is for you. You might be a Leo ascendant. You might just have 0 degrees Aries in your 9th house, but you are stepping into a new cycle as it relates to truth, meaning, faith altogether. And it's stepping into a new cycle with both spirit, Neptune, and substance, Saturn, both with idealism, Neptune, and realism, Saturn. Like there is a fusion taking place. Some of you are stepping into a new level of mastery as it relates to your spiritual experience. Now, granted, within this human experience, a lot of us are always trying and messing up and falling and getting back up. Like Aries energy really empowers kind of the messiness as it relates to this human experience. So it's not to ever say that we get to a point of utter mastery during this human experience, but you could really know your stuff at this point. Maybe you have been studying or you are studying some sort of spiritual modality. Maybe you are really diligent as it relates to your religion. Maybe you are really taking your academic future seriously. You're enrolling in a master's. There could be an energy where some of you are acquiring mastery as it relates to a spiritual practice. You could be really prioritizing your religion, prioritizing your beliefs. There's just an energy around really building a solid worldview for yourself and recognizing where it differs from others. Saturn is in its fall currently, which means it's not positioned favorably. And when it's not positioned favorably, it does kind of erode some of the themes. And so Saturn is around tradition and this is how things are done. And 9th house can govern religion and spirituality and academia, which granted does take, rigorous mastery and studying and dedication, all of that. But with Saturn in Aries, it asks you to place yourself in this experience where it's really like honoring your instincts around which mentors align for you, which classes you want to take, what you want your major to be, if this is showing up around academia, but even just what's right for you in regards to your worldview. Like there could be an energy where it's like, I really aligned this religion, but this passage of the text doesn't align for me. I am building a worldview where I can have religion as well as having astrology, even if that's considered different than the structured way that it must be done, where it needs to be black and white. Like the energy of Aries is honoring our own uniqueness within our own worldview, centering ourselves within it. It's not outsourcing yourself around just because my religion says this, that's what I think. It's like placing yourself very squarely in this, where it's like, yes, this aligns for me. Because ultimately, when we think of Aries energy, it's instincts. It's just like that gut instinct, like yes or no energy. When I think of 9th house, it's truth and faith and meaning. And so you know and feel truth when it comes in. And so there can be an energy around recognizing like, gosh, this is what my college professor says, but that doesn't feel right for me. Or this is what my preacher says, and this doesn't feel right for me. Like there's so much that works with me and I'm dedicated to it and devoted to it, but there's certain elements where it's like, not within my experience. And it takes centering yourself and knowing that there's not just one way of doing things or one way of believing in things or even one path to take to acquire wisdom. If there's an energy around feeling the pressure around, I got to go to college, I got to get a master's, I got to do all of this, it's not to say there's not enormous value in that. And some of you could be stepping into that, but there could be an energy around, where did this come from? Did this come from society? Did this come from me? And it's like stepping into, no, I'm making decisions for myself. Or even if there's an energy around, in order to get my yoga teacher certification, I can only go abroad. Like ninth house is far away lands. Like, yes, there's lots of wisdom that we can take in when we do travel abroad. And some of you could be traveling abroad, yes. But what I'm saying is there could be a deconstruction around, why is it that I feel that that's the only way to do things? Just because that's what other people say to do. Like, I can make this my own. It's my life. So yes, it's opening yourself up to higher wisdom, to travels, to academic experiences, but it's centering yourself within it. And I mentioned this and I feature this so heavily just because Neptune energy sometimes can make us a little bit more susceptible as it relates to being sold a dream or having certain mentors or gurus who tell us you have to be so this or you have to be fully this. And the energy of Saturn is just that energy of discernment. This is not the time to like sell all your belongings and travel with some sort of guru across the world. Like Saturn is being discerning and allowing your study of wisdom to be something that's grounded and solid and that keeps you in your own identity. Like definitely being mindful if there's any sort of religious group or spiritual institution who wants you to outsource your power to them around, you don't need to think for yourself. We think for you. And I know this sounds silly, but sometimes it's just like erosive, Neptune energy. Sometimes it's like pushing your boundaries in this way and you get more and more ensnared and then you don't realize how much of your personal agency has been essentially eroded until you're so deeply entangled with it. And so that would be my encouragement. Yes, seek wisdom, travel, go to college, do whatever aligns with your own worldview, but be very mindful where it is that you lose yourself utterly within it. Center yourself within your own worldview. Ensure that your spirituality feels grounded within your daily life and feels grounded and right for you is really the ask here. Some of you are publishing something or you are stepping up as a mentor. You're stepping up as a guide. Some of you have been building mastery within a spiritual topic and you could be sharing about it. And even if it's not spiritual necessarily, some of you could be teaching and publishing and sharing, very connected to how this is helping humanity at large. That's the energy of Neptune. But also recognizing this responsibility of that around being someone that other people look to. If you are not someone of high integrity and if your ethics are not sound, you can do immense harm, especially if you are in places where people are vulnerable or they are seeking spiritual guidance. Like you have to hold yourself to a very high code of ethics because it could just get so warped and it can really put people at a disadvantage if they look to you for guidance. Like it can erode what you are a proponent of. Like it can really make people look funny at your research or your book or your modality if you are not who you say that you are. That's the gift of keeping ourselves very grounded as it relates to our studies, as it relates to our pursuit of wisdom, is that with Aries energy, it's like, this is what's right for me. And so if people know this about me, I don't really care because this is authentic. Like this energy gets tricky when people are not who it is that they say that they are, or profess who it is that they are. But there's an energy of solidity around, yeah, this is me. And I don't particularly care what you have to say about it because I feel grounded and solid in who I am. And even if this was publicized, even if this information was revealed about me, there's nothing that you could expose me for. I've already exposed myself. I already stand in my truth. This energy just gets tricky if you're not standing in your truth or you're aligning yourself with all of these rules when you're not living in them. There just could be an energy around being very solid in who you are and taking on a high standard of ethics, especially if you're stepping into coaching, teaching, mentoring, publishing a book. There is a responsibility as it relates to sharing and disseminating information. If Saturn and Neptune will conjoin within the 10th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Cancer rising. You may just have 0 degrees Aries in the 10th house. But regardless, you are stepping into a massive new public cycle, and underline and highlight and circle the word public, because it does not get more visible than the 10th house. 10th house, where this aligns for you, governs career, public persona, reputation, and you are really taking the responsibility for something that is bigger than you, a vision that is bigger than you. And for a lot of you, it is uncharted territory. Like 0 degrees Aries is going where it is that nobody has gone before. And there's an energy around responsibility. That's Saturn, like the weight of it, even around how much pressure it can be to be a leader and have so much on you, and to take risks, and to even be visible as it relates to your successes and your failures, to have all of them displayed for the world to see. The weight of that, the Saturn of that. But also the vision that you're stepping into, where some of you could have received a download. You could have really received directions from God on something that you are here to create, a cause that you are here to lead up. You could have felt like you were prompted by the universe. Like Neptune energy is our dreams and our visions. And it is a responsibility to bear a vision, or a dream, or a calling, so to speak. And that's something that you're really recognizing at this time, or at least I would encourage you to recognize that. Because with Saturn, Neptune, it's around, hey, it's a lot of work to take something from the ethers and put it into this practical reality. There will be days that you'll want to give up. There will be days that you feel embarrassed. There will be days that you are just looking around, looking for somebody else to tell you what to do, but you have to give yourself direction. Like there will be moments that it's hard, but you have to keep going because it's bigger than you. Like that's the energy of Neptune. You are helping people. You are telling a story. You are getting out needed, necessary information. There can just be an energy where it sucks and the lows are lows, but there also could be recognition around the high highs of knowing that what you are doing is bigger than you. And I even feel like some of you could be setting up some sort of essentially solid foundation of something that will continue to thrive for years to come. And when we are setting up a foundation, a solid foundation of something, it takes time. You know, you don't want to live in a house where they rushed it. Do you? Would you want to live in a house where they rushed it? Where they just kind of like yada yada some of the construction? No, you want something solid. You want to know that the floor is not going to crash through. There is a gift as it relates to time. There is a gift sometimes as it relates to not getting what we want exactly when we wanted it. And so I have to be forthright and say this new cycle that you're stepping into can take some time. You know, Saturn will be here for some time. Neptune will be here for even longer as it relates to the 10th house. But this new cycle is beginning of something that may take time, but it's being solidified intentionally because the universe, the divine, knows that you're put on this planet to do this, to build this. And you might get frustrated around this legislation or this tax code or getting this dialed in, but you're building a foundation, and it's going to be important to honor that, as well as to take full accountability, to take full responsibility. Again, sometimes we just have executive overwhelm where it's like, I don't want to make more decisions. I don't want to have to decide what to do next, but it's important to take on that responsibility, as well as know that even if you are doing this on your own, which I feel like some of you are just with the 0 degrees Aries of it all, or at least you're starting something, even if you do pull in other individuals, you could be like the driver of it. It's important to know that you always have a co-pilot with the cosmos, or you always have essentially your business partner by your side via the divine. And there could be an energy around, you know, stepping into a new era of leadership, like spiritual leadership, like with the energy of Neptune, stepping into it with faith, with kindness, with compassion, as well as with the responsibility to your own processes that help you hear your intuition, that help you make decisions fast, that help you exercise discernment. I do feel like a lot of you are starting your own business. I feel like even if it's not directly related to what you do, even if you're out of the workforce, I feel like some of you could be leading up a passion project, leading up a calling, doing something public out in the world. Even if you are in your ideal career, there can be an energy around, okay, for me to get to the next level or for me to make a difference in the world, How can I position myself, or how can I advocate for this new idea that I have because it's bigger than me? Some of you may feel misaligned with what you do for career, and this is a new cycle that could be pushing you to go in a new direction. And you might be like, Haley Comet, I'm tired. I don't want to head up this like spiritual led business, what have you. There just could be an energy around recognizing the weight of your current position, your current career, your current boss, even authority figure, how much that's taking from you. Yes, your time and your energy with the energy of Saturn, but also like your spiritual, your soul. Like you could recognize that your career is sucking your soul dry. And this could be a cycle in which you are prompted to go in a different direction, a more spiritually nourishing direction, where even if there's hard days, you feel connected to what you're doing and it feels part of something bigger than yourself. And you're at least trying, and you're messing up and you're getting back up. And whether you're self-employed or working within your career or retired, there just could be an energy around really taking responsibility over yourself. Because when we talk about 10th house, it pulls in themes around reputation. And with Neptune energy, people may have all sorts of theories on who you are, all sorts of projections or assumptions of who you are. And at the end of the day, you have to know yourself deeply, and you have to live in deep alignment with your own authenticities so that nobody can expose you, right? When you own who it is that you are, the messiness and all, nobody can really come for you in a sense. Because it's like, yeah, there's nothing you can say about me that I haven't already said. And sometimes we'll make up all sorts of other things. That's when you need to like stand firmly in your own sense of self, knowing that you cannot control what people say about you. You cannot control the narrative people spin of you. If Saturn and Neptune will conjoin within the 11th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Gemini rising. You may just have 0 degrees Aries located within the 11th house. But either way, you are stepping into a new cycle as it relates to your own personal visions of your own personal future, as well as your collective visions for our shared collective future. And you may have certain things that make you angry. I'm sure many of us have many things that are making them angry at this particular moment in time around how humanity is going. And I'm not saying it's good to live in anger or live in outrage. It's not a very like healthy place for us to stay all of the time. But sometimes our anger can be a motivator. You know, Mars, the planet that Saturn and Neptune are answering to at this time, is the planet of anger, but also of action, of motivation. And sometimes when something infuriates us, that's the impetus we need in order to get involved, in order to make a difference. Like we just see a piece of litter on our street and we're like, okay, that's it. I've got to organize a cause to pick up all of this litter. Like sometimes our anger can be fuel for us to make a difference for ourselves, but also for humanity at large. And I feel like a lot of stepping up as some sort of courageous leader, some sort of visionary at this time, like Neptune energy is visions, and 0 degrees Aries is potential. So believing in a potential that does not yet exist, which sometimes can make you feel delusional or preposterous in believing that this could occur. But we need individuals who are willing to go into uncharted territory to dream of what does not exist, because this is a reset button. We cannot go backwards. And like we talked about within the opening, there's no going back. And why would we want to? Like, there's so much that we know now around what humanity has been like throughout all of these different eras. Like, we don't want to go backwards. We want to move towards that vision of utopia. Like, that's Neptune energy, is utopia. It's kindness and compassion and all working together, which, yes, can feel to be too good to be true, but it's worth working towards. It's worth dreaming towards. It's worth not letting this world make you feel so disenchanted and so jaded that you forget to dream, that you forget to imagine, that you forget to conceptualize what could exist. And so there could be an energy around feeling the weight or the responsibility around a dream that you have for humans. And of course, this could show up around your own personal future. So you could have a vision. You want to be a musician. You want to be an artist. You want to be an influencer, whatever it is. There could be a vision that you have and feeling the weight of it, because it is a responsibility to chisel a vision, chisel a dream. Just because something is meant for you does not mean it will not require your work and your participation. You know, you got to participate in your fate. Truly, especially with this Aries energy. You know, it's just fascinating being an astrologer and having worked with thousands of clients and charts at this point, where there's just so many charts that I've seen that are objectively very hard and very challenging, but they have spun that and made beautiful things within their world. They have stepped up into a higher calling. They have left an incredible impact, even if their life and their chart gave them every excuse not to do that, just to remain jaded and disillusioned and to dissolve into coping strategies. Like, they could have gone that path, but instead they chiseled this beautiful, authentic path of arising to their own talents and gifts. I've also seen charts where there's so much opportunity, there's so much potential, there's so much talent, but it's not being necessarily leveraged because either they don't believe in themselves or they would rather coast. Like, it's important to know, obviously, we're all here in my cosmic corner of the internet. I would assume we're all into astrology. Like, it is truly an art of interpretation that reflects what we're walking down here on planet Earth. And it can be so powerful when leveraged. But that's the point, leveraged. You know, sometimes we just think, well, that's my fate and that's that. But you got to participate in your fate, especially with Aries energy being a very active, assertive energy where you can have all of the talent within your body. You can have all of the ability, but you got to show up and practice piano. You got to put yourself out there. You got to get more comfortable with risking yourself or with rejection. Even Aries energy could be like going for it, even if we get shot down, or allowing ourselves to befriend, challenge, or make your visions come true. Some of you could be starting some sort of group, some sort of community, some sort of committee. And I feel this is really medicinal at the time that we're walking through, where we are currently navigating a time where so much is fake. You know, we're walking through a time in which a lot of people feel very lonely, and there's a lot that feels very fake. And like I said, with Aries energy, there's such a craving and desiring of real. And I think a lot of people are really craving genuine connection, you know, in a time where AI is becoming increasingly rampant. I think that puts more of a premium on the things that make us uniquely human. And so you could be really wanting to bring people together, even if it's just like chess club. Again, some of you could be bringing together causes to change the world, to advocate, to make a difference, but it just could be this energy around people crave community. People want to feel heard. People want to feel seen. People want to feel together. And there can be a focus on that. Some of you are stepping into a new cycle around friendship, really wanting friends who see you as you are, who you are authentic around, where you don't feel like you have to mask or perform around. Some of you could be really seeing your friends clearly for who it is that they really are outside of rose-colored glasses. You could be feeling the weight that relates around certain friends within your life, where, of course, the cost of community is being inconvenienced a time or two, but there's a difference between being inconvenienced and holding space for other individuals versus feeling perpetually drained and depleted as a result of intertwining within these dynamics. Like, you could just be feeling the weight of that can be very alive at this particular moment. Some of you could be making new friends, like you could have moved, or you could be at a new, even working environment. You know, 11th house can govern our colleagues. So there can be an energy where you are networking, you are really building the people that you are connecting with, you are making new friends, and you're going into it with both an understanding of boundaries with the energy of Saturn, but also wanting people who are also fellow dreamers and visionaries and creatives with the energy of Neptune. If Saturn and Neptune will conjoin within the 12th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. A lot of you may be Taurus ascendants. A lot of you may just have 0 degrees Aries located in the 12th house, but all of you know that only you can do it for you. And what I mean by that is that Aries is a very independent, self-sufficient sign. And it's going to be so key just with Saturn and Neptune's journey through Aries altogether to know that nobody can do it for us. Nobody can bring our dreams to reality for us. No one can make the changes in our life that we want to see for us. It's independent altogether. And then 12th house brings in this dimension of solitude. And with Saturn and Neptune aligning here, there's this energy around knowing that only you can do it for you. Only you can arise to your purpose. Only you can arise to your calling for you. And sometimes it's personal in a sense, like your motivation of going after something where it's like, this time it's personal. And when I win, when I succeed, you know, it's for me. Like ultimately it is for me. It's for a younger version of me. It's for my past self. It's even for a past life. Like sometimes something just personal, it's bigger than you. And that gives you the impetus and the momentum and the motivation to keep going even when it gets hard. Because some of you are stepping into a cycle where you are having to get real. about things that are a little challenging to get real about. Some of you are looking at your tendencies around substances. Some of you are getting sober at this time, or really looking at what you do in order to escape, in order to numb, in order to cope. Life is hard. And with the energy of Saturn Neptune, it could just be a recognition around certain things that you have leaned upon in order to make it easier, and recognizing how those things are now leading to your own demise. There could be an energy around even recognizing how substances can alter your own intuitive ability. It can make it more challenging to tap in, to receive guidance from the other side. We cannot hear guidance from the other side when we are perpetually, essentially bleaching our third eye, which a lot of times substances do. And it's so interesting because some substances do make us more open. Like some people have visions or connect in a certain way. And I do think certain things can be done with intention, but sometimes we over rely on it in order to have this spiritual experience. Like those things can open doors, but they can be crutches, especially if that's the only way that you're able to tap in or hear is via these particular substances. And ultimately, it's not very grounded. If you're only creative when you are doing this, or when you only can hear your intuition when you're doing this, or you only feel connected to the divine when you are relying on psychedelics. Again, all of these things can be done with intention, but there just could be recognition around this not being done with intention. I'm not integrating these things, because sometimes we receive all this information, but if we're not integrating it within daily life, if we're not having a regular meditation practice, if we're not remaining mindful for what it is that we're feeling, that wisdom has nowhere to go. Like we just kind of open ourselves up to all of this information and just kind of get swept away. Like we need time to ground and to integrate the messages that we receive, the information that we receive, especially when it relates to spiritual messages. And again, substance is just one part of this. Some of you can find you're much more spiritually open at this time, and you're actually needing discernment around when to close those doors. Like there can be an energy around getting really good at cleansing and cloaking your aura, your energy. There can be a recognition around trusting your inner discernment around what is right for you, what is wrong for you, even if it does not make sense to the mind, honoring that gut instinct around, not sure about this person, not sure about this place. Because sometimes our spirit knows things that our mind has not yet caught up to. And there could be an energy around working the muscle of discernment in order to hear that and trust that. There's a huge story for you showing up this time around self-trust, trusting yourself as a conduit, not outsourcing your intuition, whether it's to substances, as we discussed, but also to practitioners. Like ultimately, all of us have intuition. It's a muscle for all of us to work, really. And so some of you are working the muscle around hearing your own intuition, trusting your own discernment, trusting what's a yes, what's a no, looking at your life and seeing what helps me hear myself more and what fogs and confuses my energy. There also could be a major focus on rest at this time, being a little bit more inaccessible, being a little bit more private, potentially spending more time in solitude in order to cleanse your energy, cleanse your aura. Like there just could be an energy of being more sensitive. And so you're taking on more and feeling the weight of that. So you're stepping into a new cycle of being open as a channel, yes, with Neptune, but understanding the responsibility of that. You know, receiving a lot of information is challenging. At times, it seems really great to be psychic and intuitive, which again, all of us are. It seems really great to have very pronounced psychic and spiritual abilities, but then you receive a lot of information that sometimes you don't always know what to do with. And sometimes it hurts your feelings. Sometimes it takes a toll on you. Sometimes it's hard to ground. Like we have to open ourselves up as channels, but also structure our life with boundaries, with rituals that help us ground and integrate the information. And so that is the journey that you are stepping into at this time. So my loves, how lucky are we that we all get to be alive during this incredibly rare Saturn Neptune at 0 degrees Aries conjunction and alignment. What a time to be alive. And what's going to be important is to take on this conjunction, both where it's showing up collectively as well as where it's showing up individually within your chart, with that Aries spirit, that warrior spirit, that trust in yourself that you will get through this trust in your own strength, this empowered stance, and this knowing that we are all stepping into uncharted territory. We are going where nobody alive during this time on planet Earth has gone before. And how exciting is this? We tend to think of new beginnings and new starts as scary because it is so unknown, but what if it could be even better? What if we could move towards a future that feels unfeasible based on how things are now? And it takes work, Saturn, to build our dreams, Neptune. It takes even the work to move through the stuck points, the fear of it all. But our dreams are worth fighting for. And that's really the essence of Saturn on Neptune. So I'd love to know below, what are you looking forward to about this transit? What are you not looking forward to as much? What shook you within the historical portion of Saturn and Neptune? I would love to know. If you'd like to connect further, just know that here on the channel, there are all sorts of videos for you to check out. We have all sign 2026 readings here on the channel via 12 Days of Cosmos. We have all signs readings like this one on major aspects, major transits that we're experiencing. I also have a weekly horoscope podcast called Magic Monday, where I chat you through the astrology of each and every week and how to make it magical, leveraging the cosmos for co-creation. I would deeply appreciate any bit of engagement you can give this video, from a like to a comment to a share, sending it to a friend. My Instagram, if you'd like to connect, is at Haley Comet Astrology. My TikTok is the same. But until we meet again, stay magical.